During the Great War of the past, Rulai defeated Dasheng, but instead of retrieving the scriptures, Dasheng chose to become king if he won, and to reincarnate and start anew if he lost. And he didn't just start over once, he began again 1,000 times. Among the entities that shook the world were a few notable names such as Humuri and Danmi. But the most famous name of all is Jin Mori. Jin Mori was not born with Dasheng's power. He couldn't initially use even the small cloud or the Ruyi Jingubang. He only truly gained the power to defeat GOH's Buddhas and even demons, after enduring countless life and death battles. Becoming the true lord, the black-haired man was sent flying backward by a punch from Jin Mori. The excited crowd around couldn't help but be amazed. Jin Mori exhaled, drenched in sweat. "From now on, I am the strongest," Jin Mori said, pointing at himself with a bright smile spreading across his face. After defeating Jin, he swung his arms and legs, walking away, laughing and thinking. "My name is Jin Mori, 17 years old. Fight record, 299 matches, 287 wins, 10 losses, and 2 draws. Basically, I've never lost a fight." Jin walked along singing, "Why am I so unbeatable? It's simple. I learned taekwondo from my grandfather, my only family member." Jin recalled training with his grandfather as a child. "That's why when I fight, punches seem slower, allowing me to dodge them all with my own eyes without getting hit once." Jin imagined himself lightly evading punches and even knocking down a heavy opponent with a single strike. He raised his arm as an overweight man lay flat on the ground. "Taekwondo. The pride of our nation is such a great sport that it's included in the Olympic events." Jin kept walking, swinging his arms and legs, muttering endlessly, "I'm unbeatable. I'm the strongest." A shadowy figure appeared behind Jin. Hearing someone call his name, Jin turned around surprised. "Congratulations! You've proven yourself worthy to participate in the GOH of high school," the man said, politely bowing. However, Jin ignored him and kept walking straight ahead. The man appeared again in front of him and bowed once more. "Apologies for my delayed introduction. I am R, head of the GOH of high school committee," he said. R continued, "Let me start over." But before he could finish, Jin excitedly interrupted. "Looks like you've studied taekwondo too, right?" "Just now you used bobup," Jin said. R was completely confused, his head full of question marks. "What are you talking about?" "Hey, don't play with me," Jin said with a big grin. In just a split second, Jin moved behind him. "Now you should know I have a black belt," he said. "Oh, how interesting. I had no idea such a technique existed in taekwondo," R said as he turned his head to look. "But anyway, you qualify to join GOH." R hadn't finished when Jin had already started walking away again. "We will grant you anything you desire." Hearing that, Jin finally stopped and turned to look at R. "If you win, we will give you anything you want, money, women, whatever you desire," R said with a smile. "Okay, I'm in," Jin replied. Then continued walking while mumbling to himself. R turned to look at Jin with cold, sharp red eyes. In an instant, a punch swept past Jin's face while he was still happily thinking he was unbeatable. It left a long scratch with blood trickling down Jin's cheek. He immediately stopped his rambling. "The rules are very simple. You can fight under any circumstances." With a bright smile, he explained, "There are no restrictions on weapons. We ensure all necessary safety standards so your life won't be in danger. So let me say it once more." R appeared behind Jin, grabbed one of his arms, and held out an envelope in front of him. "You've qualified to join GOH," he said. The wound on Jin's cheek was still bleeding. "How did you do that?" Jin asked. Jin asked while pointing ahead at dozens of trees that had been cut cleanly, leaving only bare stumps behind. "I'll tell you if you join. Just remember, if you win, that will be only the beginning. I don't like to think too much about what comes after," R said. Jin cut him off. "Fight me. If you beat me, I'll join your go, whatever it is." He took a fighting stance, ready for battle. "Does it have to be this way?" R asked again. Jin smiled and replied without hesitation. A moment later, Jin found himself lying face down on the ground beside him, the letter he had just planted lying nearby. Jin sat up surprised. "Did I really lose?" He bent over, trembling uncontrollably. "I think it's time for me to get serious." Jin clasped his hands together. The next day was ordinary. At school, the teacher kept writing on the board that my name was Park Yong-jae. Everyone else listened attentively, but Daewee Han rested his head on the desk and slept. After school, students chatted happily with each other while Han let out a big yawn. With his hands in his pockets, he looked utterly lifeless. Daewee Han is that you hurry and deliver 3 servings of black bean noodles to Gunyong. Still half asleep, Han set off to make the delivery. 11:00 p.m. at a convenience store. That will be 2:40 a.m. Thank you, come again, the last customer said as they left. Get home safe. Dae Han waved goodbye to his co-worker. See you tomorrow, he said as he headed out. Han fell asleep on the bus. Back at 7:00 a.m. on the rooftop of a tall hospital, Han called out, Yo! Why did you come here? The other person asked. I came to visit you before heading to school. Han walked over and said, Oh wow, what a good kid. How are you doing? Dae Han asked. Feeling great, the other replied with a grin. The two gazed toward the crimson sunrise where clouds were tinged with pink and purple, creating a breathtaking scene. Beautiful, Han murmured in awe. You're still working? The bald young man asked curiously. Yeah, I might be able to take a trip if I work a bit more, Han replied calmly. Don't lie, the other snapped, rushing forward with a scowl and grabbing Dae Han by the collar. You think I'm that dumb? The hospital bill is way too high for my sister. Even a 3-year-old could see that, he shouted. My condition isn't that bad, Han began, but suddenly felt an itch in his nose. He opened his mouth, took a few breaths, then turned his head and sneezed loudly. After coughing a few times, he acted as if nothing happened and turned back around. The bald young man chuckled, scratching his now hairless head beneath his hat, and said, Got any money? I need something to eat. Han smirked. No. At school during lunchtime, many students gathered in long lines at the cafeteria, chatting excitedly. After getting his meal, Dae Han moved to a table and quickly slurped up his noodles. Suddenly, 3 students entered, causing every other student in the cafeteria to turn their heads in fear. While Han was still loudly slurping his food, one of the 3 bumped into his arm, spilling the entire meal onto Han's shirt. The brown-haired guy leaned down, placing a hand on Han's shoulder. Hey, why are you eating here? The dark green-haired guy who had bumped into Han earlier reached out his hand. I'm sorry, he said. Han grabbed the dark green-haired guy's hand with a smile. I was going to wash it anyway, so don't worry about it. What's your name? The dark green-haired guy asked, frowning. Han squinted and replied, Dae Han. The green-haired guy gave Han one last glance before turning and walking away. The brown-haired one looked back at Han and muttered, Damn it. Dae Han? Could he be the Dae Han from Mad Cow? The black-haired student said, eyes widening. What's that? The brown-haired one asked, puzzled. The black-haired student continued, They're fighting legends. The 2 of them defeated everyone at Gangnam. The brown-haired one scoffed. Does he even look like it? Guess I mistook him for someone else? The black-haired guy replied, Maybe. The dark green-haired student frowned, lost in thought. At the convenience store where Dae Han worked, the owner smiled and said, Another good shift. Because you've been working hard, I'll give you a $30 bonus in your paycheck. Han beamed with joy. Really, thank you, sir. Just then, the doorbell rang as someone entered. Han and the store owner turned their heads simultaneously and said, Welcome. But it wasn't a customer. The person who stepped in was Judge Q. He wore a formal black suit, glasses, and had his hair slicked back tightly. Are you doing well? Q asked politely, bowing slightly. I'm from GOH, a secret tournament that tests you to the extreme with no weapon restrictions. Before Q could finish, Han interrupted impatiently. $100 million, is that your prize? Hearing that, Q simply smiled and turned to leave. Dae Han stood stunned, thinking, they can't. At the door, Q turned around and casually grabbed a metal rod that had mysteriously appeared. If that's all you want, your request is simple, he said. If you want your friend fully healed, we can make that happen, but only if you win. With those words, Q slowly floated up into the sky, as if by magic, right before Han's eyes. What Dae Han exclaimed in shock. He rushed outside, face tense and dripping with sweat, looking up, his movements and voice frantic. How did you do that? How is that even possible? Above Han hovered a massive fighter jet just about 10 meters off the ground. Q had ascended by standing on a rope lowered from the aircraft. Q glanced down at Han and said, I'll be back soon. Until then. The jet's engines roared to life, and the powerful force from the propellers tilted a nearby car to one side. Passers-by struggled to keep their balance, and Dae Han, being closest, was blown off his feet, crashing hard into the wall behind him. Instinctively, Han raised his arms in front of his chest to protect himself. When he looked up again, both the jet and Q had vanished, leaving only the deepening night sky and an unusual patch of violet light. On his way home, Han crossed the street while counting his recent paycheck. 64, 65, 66, 67. He was figuring out if it would cover this month's hospital bill. Maybe getting another job isn't such a bad idea, he thought. Glancing down at the white envelope in his hand, he recalled Q's words. If you want your friend fully healed, we can make that happen, but only if you win. Han paused in thought, then casually tossed the envelope to the roadside and continued walking. Kidding me, it's not like I could actually win. Han arrived at the hospital and stood before the treatment room, seeing his best friend surrounded by doctors and nurses. The bald young man was on a ventilator. Aside from the medical staff's shouts, only the cold beeping of machines filled the room. That morning, his condition had worsened. A nurse covering her mouth told Han, "I'm sorry, but this amount isn't enough to cover the treatment costs." The hospital cashier's voice was steady and cold. Han remembered how that very best friend had helped him up in the past. Oh, come on. You've got to have some human feelings, right? I told you to stay close to me, his best friend had smiled brightly in Han's flashback. Looking at his friend's current state, Han felt a sharp pang in his heart. Wake up. Han spoke through the treatment room window. You were always the one who stood strong until the very end. So wake up now. The next day at school cafeteria, Han continued slurping his bowl of noodles. The spiky black-haired guy and the brown-haired one from before recognized Han. They exchanged a signal and bumped into him again, spilling his noodles onto his shirt and all over the table. The brown-haired guy sneered mockingly, "Sorry about that. I didn't see you there." Han froze for a moment. Han looked up at the brown-haired guy and said, "Don't worry about it." After that, Han stood up. The brown-haired guy noticed a thick wad of cash tucked inside Han's jacket. It was Han's paycheck from the day before. The brown-haired guy quickly grabbed the cash and started counting it. "What's this? Looks like this guy's got a job." The spiky black-haired one laughed mockingly. "Wow," and they both spoke in unison. "What's he gonna do with it? Pay tuition, give it to his girlfriend, buy a car, an iPad. He's got that much money but only eats ramen." Han turned around. The brown-haired guy continued, "You still dare look me in the face? Fine, I'll give it back to you." "See, I'm being generous," he said, then threw the cash at Han, scattering bills fluttering through the air. "You can have your worthless money back," he said contemptuously. The bills fluttered down and soaked into the spilled noodle soup on the floor. In an instant, the brown-haired guy, the spiky black-haired one, and their friend collapsed. Only Han remained standing amid scattered tables and chairs. He turned his head and said, "Yo said your prayers yet?" Blood streaked down Han's face and his eyes had turned a pale shade of brown. The dark-haired guy stepped forward. "So it's you." Grinning with delight, he shouted, "Hey Daewee Han the mad cow." Everyone stared wide-eyed as Han swung his fist so fast it sent the dark teal-haired guy flying with both legs in the air. His unconscious face showed one cheek completely dented from the blow. "You said you'd give me anything I want if I win." At some point, Q appeared behind Han and bowed politely. "Yes." Han didn't turn around. "Then I'll join." Mira-Yu was walking when she tripped over a rock and fell. Minseo turned around ready to yell but suddenly froze. This is the first time I've seen a girl's relatives look that impressive. Something white just slipped out, did you guys see that? Minseo turned away, embarrassed, but thrilled, even drooling slightly. Still, he reached out to help her up. "You need to be more careful. Do you practice kendo just to admire it or what?" Mira-Yu was momentarily stunned by his bold and gallant gesture, this 17-year-old guy who could break a bull's horn. Right now, he's Jaejang, the best fighter in her school, and these two are involved in some sneaky, flirty relationship with each other. Mira-Yu's gossip-loving close friends were shocked that she and he were dating. "You're really something. You're in the national top 100 for standardized tests. You have it all, looks, charm, and you're really cute. But your boyfriend is a brute, someone who only knows how to fight. Recently, he even defeated the Jaejang of Dongpa High, making him the Jaejang of this entire area." In the far corner of the classroom, close friends joked around. "You dared eat my food before I even touched it. Tired of living, huh?" Minseo grabbed his friend by the collar but noticed some girls watching him, so he gave a little grin, thinking it made him look cool. Mira-Yu's long-haired friend gave a quick rundown of her love life. In middle school, she had a crush on a student director. Not long ago, it was the captain of the judo team, and now it's the Jaejang of the school. Don't tell me you're into those muscle-bound monsters. At this point, Mirayu finally admitted that her oddly specific type was exactly those guys who were not only strong and handsome, but also possessed all 4 key traits she admired. Her 2 friends were already fed up and didn't want to say anything more. By the time school ended, the young couple were back to flirting again, holding hands as they walked down a cherry blossom-lined path. Yo, it's not just about being cute. The voice of a stranger shattered the excited atmosphere between them. Last time I still owed you 1 Minseo. That was Choi Music, a cocky orange-haired punk. He didn't come alone. He brought a whole gang to surround them. Minseo glanced over and instantly knew this wouldn't end well. He quickly told Mira, "You hurry, get out of here." Mirayu hesitated briefly. Then he shouted loudly, "Immediately, go now." Mirayu agreed to leave at that moment. Choi Music was impressed by Minseo's recent act of throwing himself for a girl. Wow, that's impressive, but... "Shut up, come on, jump in, you bastard!" Mirayu ran as fast as she could, trying to escape. Suddenly, with a bang, she collided with a guy wearing a blue jacket. She thought he was some cool guy, but it turned out to be 3 random guys hanging out with that orange-haired punk. They looked at her with affectionate eyes and warm smiles. Mirayu clasped her hands together and stared at them. At that moment, Minseo was also getting beaten badly, damn bastard. The 2 sides were about to clash again. Then a guy ran over to him. The guy clutched his bleeding arm. The monster. He hadn't had time to send his final words to Dad and Mom or check today's schedule when Mirayu appeared from behind him. "I think I've failed once again. If you're a real man, then at least you should be able to defeat 20 guys with ease." The cool badass lady held wooden swords in one hand and dragged a guy by the neck with the other. Minseo froze on the spot. "Where's your spirit? How can a bunch of weaklings give you such a hard time?" The others heard this and felt their ears ring with frustration. The 3 rushed in to strike. Note for readers, it's hard to tell just by looking, but these guys are actually high school students. Seriously, kids grow up fast these days. All 3 charged at once, clearly intending to gang up on her. Who would have thought the blood of swordsmanship surged within her? She unleashed the next move in the Moonsword-style light 35th dance marionettes. Marionettes. She glided past them effortlessly and landed several swift strikes. They immediately dropped to the ground, completely defeated. Mirayu recalled the old days when her father lay bedridden, holding her hand and saying, "If you want the swordsmanship of the Yu clan to live on, you need to find a man with good seeds. Be eager to sow them, my girl." "Remember good seeds," he said, before coughing up his final mouthful of blood and passing away. Mirayu, the dutiful daughter, still remembered her father's words, "Find the best stamping machine to use." But seeing Minseo getting beaten to a pulp left her too disappointed to speak. She muttered accidentally, "So in the end, this seed is hollow, and this machine runs on diluted oil." Minseo was so shocked he practically vanished a second time. "Seed," he muttered. Only now did he realize he was nothing more than a test sample all along. Mirayu walked right past him. "You're just getting in the way," she said. "So let's put an end to this." The whole group rushed in, fully aware that even though she was a girl, she was insanely badass. Mirayu didn't even need her wooden sword to handle them. She dropped it to the ground. "You're not even worthy to die by the blade of Yu clan swordsmanship. No sword-style first stance." She snapped the orange-haired guy's neck before he could even yawn. His neck made a crisp snap under her powerful hands. Now, beneath her feet lay a scattered mess of bodies, dead or alive, no one could tell. A white-haired staff member from the organization witnessed the scene and stood silently off to the side, reciting a prayer. "Mirayu, the 25th successor of Moonlight. You are now qualified to enter the GOH." Mirayu looked at him with sparkling, glistening eyes. Yes. Thus, the 17-year-old kendo prodigy, Mirayu, decided to join the GOH to find a worthy seed train day and night and fulfill her father's dying wish. Meanwhile, the 3 fools she had beaten earlier were still twitching and flailing, left reeling from the aftershocks of her blows. And the heart of one innocent young man had just been shattered. Back to the battle between our main character Mori Jin and R. At this point, Jin had already been knocked down but was struggling to stand again. "You can still stand? You should be grateful I haven't even used my legs yet. I just let you flex a little after all. It's only the beginning." R was surprised. "You know, Taekwondo," Mori Jin said, "my grandfather told me to use it only against those who are truly strong. But from now on I acknowledge that you're strong, so You better watch out, he said, flashing a smile. He casually raised his leg for a kick, but R swiftly blocked it, freezing him in place. Jin thought one solid hit would finish it, but who would have guessed I overdid the cool act earlier? I'll keep my end of the deal, R said. Turns out R had been holding back too, not just him. A few hours later, in some office somewhere, R reported on the mission. I'll be back. We've finished delivering invitations to all selected participants. You may leave. Suddenly the boss's eyes landed on R's hand, and with unexpected concern asked, Your hand, what happened to it? One of the participants broke your arm. R didn't even bother to turn around to respond. All he could think about was that clash with Mori-jin. Yes, very interesting, he thought. Meanwhile, in a small rented room, Mori-jin was sleeping like a corpse even without a pillow. Suddenly his phone rang, waking him up. He pulled off his sleep mask and looked at the clock. Oh my go. I'm so freaking late. He dashed off with the same speed Ma Lan once used to bike 200 kilometers a day just to get to school. Just 30 more turns to reach the stadium with his legs. And that bike, he could make it in 30 minutes. Legs faster than a train, shoulders tougher than steel. Now we know where Lan got her training from. He sped past trains and cars, then caught sight of a thief in action. The thief snatched an old lady's handbag by the roadside. Oh no, that's the money for my grandchild's surgery. Stop that thief. In Mori-jin's mind, a dramatic backstory unfolded. I need to buy clothes for my grandson and pay for the surgery. We barely have enough to eat. Kimbap here. Come on, come on. Then some random kid knocked over a pile of kimchi rice balls. In the hospital, the doctor announces the boy has a brain tumor. Using the shortest C-tube, everything was edited and compressed into just 0.25 seconds. As easy as taking candy from a baby, a song played. Our home has been poor since we were young. We never ate out like others. My mom said she didn't like eating jajang noodles. The thief sneaked around trying to find where the sound was coming from. His heart was suddenly moved, so warm, so full of love and regret, yet still smiling like that. To passers-by, it didn't seem like much, but that was Gok. Only now did the thief notice him. He immediately bolted, running for his life. Stop right there. You're a thief. Mira, you now completely lost, stopped a random guy to ask a few questions. Before she could even show him the address, the thief ran past a puddle at lightning speed. Before she could dry off, Jin splashed another wave of cool water her way. Mira Yu slowly stood up, saw her glasses shattered from the fall, and boiled with rage. You bastard! I'm gonna get you for that 14th technique of the Wolgang sword-style boomerang. Mori-jin was pedaling like a mad bull when suddenly a stick slammed into his bike wheel. The bike stayed behind, but he was launched straight forward through the air. His face slammed into the pavement, and to top it off, he flipped twice in the air. You crazy bastard! With your lousy biking, Mira Yu finally grabbed him by the head. Are you insane? I was chasing a thief, damn it! Mira Yu quickly jumped in as well. Oh, really? Then I'll help you make up for it. She stood tall on the back seat of Mori-jin's bike, one pedaling like a mad dog, the other spinning and twirling her wooden sword behind him. To the thief, those two looked like they'd dropped straight out of the sky. How the hell were they even doing that? Even if this were fiction, it was just too ridiculous. The thief didn't get it. The viewers didn't get it. Only the author did. So they added an extra page just to illustrate that pose, explaining there was absolutely nothing ridiculous about it at all. Well, looking at the illustration, it did feel a bit off. A moral lesson suddenly appeared, our rivers and mountains cleaner and greener. What's with all this nonsense killing and doing all this random bullcrap is completely ridiculous. After years of grinding in the F1 racing scene, the thief decided to leave those two in the dust at that sharp corner. I'm counting on you, got it. Mori-jin used one foot and Mira Yu wielded her wooden sword. That's how they pulled off the turn so effortlessly. The thief felt like crying but couldn't shed a single tear. Mira Yu took her stance. Second technique in the sword style, 1/ and hundreds of millions went flying. The thief had no way out. His only option was to toss the stolen bundle of cash into the air. People nearby swarmed in, scrambling to snatch the flying bills. That's mine. It's all mine. Hands off. It's mine. Seeing the chaotic scene, Mori-jin was a bit annoyed, but still hit the brakes. Otherwise, they'd be eating government meals behind bars for a long, long time. The thief laughed gleefully, but it didn't last long as someone swiftly and gracefully flashed past. 17th technique in the sword style? He didn't even get to look cool for 3 pages. because earlier he jumped way too high and forgot he was still in the middle of the street. With no wires or warning and signs all over her face, slammed straight into one of them, nothing unusual. Only pity was for the thief who had braced for jail time, but ended up in the strangest situation of his entire thieving career. May the Lord watch over us forever. Before he could finish, his teeth and lips collided, the bike crashed, and his face hit the ground hard. Dae Han, who had been chasing this guy the whole time, finally caught him. The image displayed on the screen was captured by a satellite on April 8th. Everyone seemed worried, whispering and murmuring among themselves about the image. President Obama's sheriff spoke up, saying the image looked strikingly like a giant hand pressing down on the earth. The staff grew even more anxious upon hearing this. Suddenly, alarm bells blared loudly. An urgent announcement rang out. Everyone evacuate immediately, there's an intruder. The bodyguards surrounding the president shouted in panic, because this was in the basement. It was the 120th underground floor of the Pentagon, so someone breaking in was nearly impossible. While bodyguards frantically assessed how many intruders there were, a gentle voice suddenly greeted them. The nearby bodyguards immediately pointed their guns straight at the man who had just spoken. The president asked, "Who are you? Are you from China or Japan?" The young man replied calmly, "Because there's an urgent matter. I need to report to you. President Obama. That's why I had no choice but to cause this chaos." Placing his right hand over his left chest, he bowed respectfully and introduced himself. "My name is Park Moo-jin, a member of the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea." At the same time in Samsung-dong, inside the Co-Ex Convention Hall in Seoul, if you take a special elevator deep underground, you won't find the underworld but rather the Koksbalhae Arena, a battle hall blending martial arts with spectacle. Down here, glancing around, the air was thick with tension, filled with killing intent. It was a gathering of the most dangerous monsters in all of Seoul. Standing to the left, with brown hair and slanted eyes, was Nagi-sung, the tiger of Yeongdongpo. He ruled his territory through boxing. Nearby was a big, muscular man with dark skin whose punches could shatter jaws. His muscles were like forged steel, and he often trained using a sledgehammer. Holy crap. Jack the Knight from Yeonshine was there too. Rumor had it everyone stayed clear of him because of how brutal he was. His martial art. Something called praying mantis. There was also Chadori, the big bear bile. This guy always blamed his liver when feeling unwell. That's why he had that nickname, since bear bile is known for its health benefits. Next to him was a guy munching on some strange fruit no one really knew about, but it seemed to boost his strength after eating it. His name was Na Sasu. Glancing around repeatedly, it was clear this place was packed with total beasts. The only rose among thorns was Mira Yu. She instantly became the center of attention as everyone wondered why she was even there. Most of the crowd didn't seem to know just how strong she really was, but a few had heard how she completely crushed Minseo and left him in a terrifying state. Hearing those whispers, Mira couldn't help but get annoyed. She dropped a warning so sharp it sent those poor guys' souls flying out of their bodies. Anyway, setting aside today's rose, there were still a few other seemingly cool guys in the arena, like a chubby dude casually playing with a Rubik's Cube, a scrawny guy with a ridiculously high ponytail, and no wait, a handsome dude with purple hair wearing headphones, looking cool as hell. A girl with long aqua blue hair was blowing a big babu bubble gum. Next to her was a guy in glasses looking studious with messy, unkempt hair. Alright, that's enough quick intros. The point is, this place was packed with insanely strong people. Back to Dae Han, and Mori Jin Han was leaning against the wall looking down. Jin asked him what he was thinking about. Instead of seriously answering Han's question, Jin suddenly said, "The recommended amount of sleep is 8 hours, but that's actually a bit short. Sleeping 10 hours is better for both the body and the brain." Surprisingly, Han agreed. At that moment, the two began chatting, introducing themselves, and getting to know each other. "I'm Mori Jin. I'm Dae Han." They shook hands, and Jin thanked him for what had happened earlier. Inside the stands, 5 people dressed in all-black outfits sat, their hair dyed yellow, blue, red, white, and black. The red-haired one spoke up. "A large number of participants have returned this year." Then he asked the others, "Who do you think will win in the Metro Division?" The blonde one quickly smiled and said, "Number 41, it's Mori Jin." The green-haired one sighed, cut him off, and sarcastically jabbed, "You mean the same contestant who broke your arm? Pretty pathetic. For an executive." He brought a cigarette to his lips and added one final jab, "If it were me, I'd want to just end it all." In an instant, the blonde and green-haired guys lunged at each other, but luckily, the white-haired one jumped in just in time to stop them. The white-haired guy's voice turned stern. "If you two don't stop right now, I won't stay quiet any longer." Everyone thought he was about to say something intense, but no, he just wanted to join the conversation. He believed contestant number 105 Mira Yu would win because she was a total monster. Honestly, no one could understand what was going on in these organizers' heads. Outside the arena, the event's MC's voice rang out. "Hello, hello? 1, 2, 3, attention please, eyes up here." The curtain lifted, revealing a stage with an MC standing front and center. He had a long nose and bright red glasses. He continued. "When you all entered, you were injected and given a wristband. The injection contained nanoparticles. These particles travel through your veins and directly affect your body. Simply put, you don't need to worry about dying during the match." Everyone paid close attention except Jin, who was lying there snoring. Han, standing next to him, didn't bother waking him. The MC continued over the mic. "If you look at the wristband each of you received, the interface is designed using nanotechnology and syncs with data collected from the particles inside your body. In short, the interface displays your physical attack power, defense capability, and health. Note, it's very easy to read your opponent's information." After 2 quick beep-beep sounds, the MC announced that the wristbands had been activated. Han and Mira both glanced down at their bands. Of course, Jin was still fast asleep. Then, in a calmer tone, the MC said, "All instructions have been given. The tournament will begin immediately." With that declaration, the battle officially kicked off. Everyone on the arena floor seemed eager to move. Hands clenched, feet shifting, the tension was thick in the air. Inside the stands, the 5 individuals in black suits were still closely observing the match. As expected from violence lovers, they started reacting in their usual unbothered way. A few had already begun arguing and picking fights with each other. They started clearing out some potential threats. One guy locked onto another who looked weaker and immediately lunged forward to attack. But what he didn't know was that this wide-eyed little deer turned out to be the one who took down the hunter. The weak often have more cunning than the strong. Unity is strength. 3 weaker ones joined forces and took down the stronger guy. The red-haired man in the stands spoke up. "Unfortunate for these guys. Making it to the finals is pretty much impossible. That's because they're afraid. Attack level can gauge strength, but without a wise and cunning mind, strength is useless. The strong seek out the strong. The weak look for ways to avoid them." The red-haired man continued. "Only those who rely on their true abilities, not that shallow thing called attack level, can make it to the finals. Right now that's Oh Xiong-nam, attack level 8, fighting style boxing." He held his stance, clearly aiming to fight the purple-haired guy in front of him. The purple-haired one turned around and taunted, "You should go back to the countryside and herd ducks if you're gonna hesitate like that." Poked where it hurt, Xiong-nam charged in, but luck wasn't on his side. Because he had challenged Byun-jae-hee, attack level 8, fighting style Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Elsewhere, someone was spun around in a full circle and slammed to the ground with a knockout move by Yu Sang-min, attack level 8, fighting style Judo. In another corner, Go Gamdo, attack level 9, fighting style Tai Chi Chuan. He was swiftly taking care of his opponent without breaking a sweat. Baek Shung-chul, attack level 7, fighting style unknown. He wields a stick and strikes down anyone who charges at him. Don't mistake him for weak just because he looks like a bookworm. On the other side, a fool wielding a gun tried to threaten Jun Nung-chul. Nung-chul brushed lightly past him, and the man collapsed instantly. He possessed attack level 8 with the fighting style Shaolin Kung Fu. Rolling his eyes, he looked toward the direction of the screaming. It turned out Mira was handling the approaching foes, wielding her wooden sword with graceful moves. Victory was already in her grasp. Mira, attack level 9, fighting style Moonlight Swordsmanship. Nung-chul licked his lips excitedly and charged in from behind Mira, aiming to make her crawl at his feet. Just as Mira swung her sword down, he seized the opportunity and moved in. Suddenly Jin rushed in and grabbed both of Nung-chul's wrists. He laughed gleefully and said, "Pay attention." Nung-chul looked confused, not knowing who Jin was. At that moment, Mira lunged from behind, slashing her sword just above his head. She whispered, "I'll refuse this help." She delivered another swift slash, sending Nung-chul flying. Jin had already dodged her strike just in time. He calmly said, "Careful, careful." Mira suddenly looked behind her, thinking, "How is he moving so fast?" Han stood far away, watching curiously without understanding what was happening, when three foolish idiots suddenly rushed at him. With just one gentle punch, he knocked them all away. Because he is Daewoo Han Attack Level 9 Fighting Style Cordial Karate. This style is similar to Jinbei's Fishman Karate in One Piece. It seems those still standing here have now made it through the preliminaries. The blue-haired girl in a black dress inside the stands spoke up. "Not yet, there's still one more person." A loud stomp echoed across the floor, making everyone turn toward the sound. He arrived late because there was some trouble bringing him here. The blue-haired girl's eyes turned serious as she said, "If we only look at talent, he has the highest chance of winning." He had messy curly hair, a muscular build, and a dangerous-looking face. He made everyone freeze. No one dared move because they sensed the danger radiating from him. He is Gangman Suk, 23 years old, currently serving in Seun's DUV Hall Attack Level 12. He glanced at his prey. The man looked terrified. Mansuk stepped forward and delivered a straight kick upward under the chin. His fighting style is Taekwondo. The man's head snapped backward with a light scratch visible on his chin. Mansuk widened his eyes and said, "You dodged that. You're pretty strong, aren't you?" At that moment, a hand grabbed the hem of the shirt near the leg of the man who barely avoided the kick, pulling him backward. It was Jin. He muttered, "Danger." The man turned to thank Jin. Jin grinned and replied cheerfully, "It's nothing. I didn't help you because of you, so no need to thank me." Then Jin lifted his blindfold with one hand, looked straight at Mansuk and said, "I just don't like this guy." Mansuk tilted his head with disdain, probably thinking, "Who the hell is this punk acting all cocky?" Jin grinned excitedly, thrilled to have found a worthy opponent. The two stared at each other for a moment. Mansuk spoke with contempt, dismissing Jin as a weakling and ignoring him completely. Jin stood there confused, not understanding a thing. Jin walked toward Mira, who gave him an annoyed look. "What are you staring at? Never seen a pretty girl before. Who could resist her cuteness?" He blushed shyly and said, "What's a beautiful girl like you doing here?" She replied, "Get lost." She didn't want to touch him. He looked strong and untested. Better not to invite trouble. Jin sat in a corner, still eavesdropping on what was happening nearby. At that moment, Mansuk kicked away the sword Mira was holding and said, "Why is a girl holding something like this? This kind of thing only suits a man's hand." He used his foot to lift the sword in front of him, scoffing that it was nothing but a cheap wooden sword. That comment enraged Mira. She glared and said, "Give me back my sword. Are you tired of living or what?" Still condescending, Mansuk chuckled and teased her. Just then Jin came over and took back the wooden sword for her. Looking pleased, Jin stuck out his tongue and taunted Mansuk. This caught Mansuk's attention. Annoyed because Jin had been bothering him all along, he kicked away the sword Jin was holding, sensing this was the attention Jin wanted. The old sword flew up, spinning through the air. Jin looked bewildered, not realizing when a scratch appeared on his face from that earlier kick. While Jin was still dazed, Mansuk swiftly delivered a powerful kick straight to his chest, sending him flying into the wall. The kick was so strong that where Jin hit left a deep round dent in the wall. The spinning sword fell down, but Jin still managed to hold on to it. Mansuk looked up and saw Jin smiling. Jin didn't seem to be in much pain. He spun the sword around and jabbed at Mansuk. Looking for this, they both looked at each other and laughed out loud, laughing like old friends. Mansuk narrowed his eyes, his voice dropping deep as he shouted loudly, silencing the entire hall with the power of his roar. Mira approached from behind, ready to strike with her swordless style. While he was still confused, she delivered a powerful blow to his back, leaving him stunned. She jumped up, preparing her next move, believing he had made a big mistake. But when her spinning kick slammed hard into his head, he didn't even flinch. Caught off guard, the lecherous guy turned to her and shouted, "It's black!" He looked amused and wanted to invite her out. In this awkward moment, Jin pulled down his pants all the way. He looked cool, but his underwear had a cute flower pattern. The two teased each other. Jin joked that a thong would suit him better, laughing loudly that what's inside the pants matters more, then asked if Jin wanted to see. "Oh my goh, pull your pants back up already. No one wants to see that." Meanwhile, Mira, still shocked from earlier, when she couldn't handle Man-suk, sat hard on the floor. Her eyes fixed on the two, not out of curiosity, but because Jin held her sword in his mouth, making her blood boil with frustration. After pulling Man-suk's pants back up, Jin felt something strange on his hand and realized the fabric was heavier than usual. Seizing the moment while Jin was distracted, Man-suk stomped hard on the ground. Luckily, Jin dodged just in time. It still wasn't over, his speed was just too fast. With his second kick, he sent Jin flying into the wall again, creating a second large round hole. Jin was kicked and slid a long way across the ground. He frowned in confusion, unable to understand what technique Jin had used or when, because now his ankle was shattered. Jin struggled to get up, holding his side in pain, but the wooden sword helped absorb some of the impact. Watching earlier, Dewi Han had already figured out Jin's technique. While blocking the attack, Jin used his knee and elbow to shatter Man-suk's ankle. Everyone buzzed in shock because Jin was only level 6, yet dared to face someone at level 12. Did levels mean nothing now? Dewi's face turned serious. He knew Jin had broken a rib and was clearly at a disadvantage against Man-suk's massive build. The guy didn't even flinch when attacked from behind. What's more, he was still holding himself back. When kicking, people usually use their hands to maintain balance and speed. Man-suk asked for Jin's name. But Jin didn't answer. He wanted to defeat him first, then tell him his name. Everyone around was excited to watch this fight unfold. Both flashed sly, wicked smiles. They lunged at each other full of arrogance. Thinking he would gain the upper hand, Man-suk was caught off guard when a dark figure flew in from behind Jin. Behind him was Mira, looking like a beast. In front, Jin still clenched the sword tightly in his mouth. No one could save Man-suk now. Swordless style first form. Before he could react, his jaw tilted to one side. "Who told you to bite and drool all over my sword?" she snapped. At that moment, Man-suk turned back, his eyes filled with astonishment as he looked at Mira. And so the preliminaries ended with 32 contestants moving on. Level 6 Mori Jin had just made it through. The next round would be one-on-one knockout format. Right at this moment, at the defense center in the Pentagon, the president stammered, unable to believe what he had just heard. The person sitting across replied, "It's hard to believe, but it's true. The missing nuclear bomb is a weapon of immense value." While walking across the bridge on her way home, Mira noticed someone following her. She turned around, pointed at his face, and warned him. The person there was Dewi. He stood shielding someone behind him. Jin. He awkwardly explained he was just heading home and happened to be going the same way. Mira bought it and even apologized for the misunderstanding. So naive. Still, she told Jin to stay at least 10 meters away to avoid more misunderstandings. Jin immediately grabbed her shirt, demanding compensation. "You've got guts." "Fine, I'll pay you back with some spit," she snapped. True to her word, Mira spat into Jin's hand and walked off. That should be enough, right? But no. Jin grabbed Mira's shirt again and asked, "If that sword means so much to you, why did you let it go so easily? Why attack me when I was trying to get it back?" She didn't want to tell him the reason. But she snapped, because it was Jin who broke her glasses. If she still had them, someone nearsighted like her wouldn't have lost the sword so easily. After getting her answer, he turned around and asked for compensation again, maybe some painkillers or something. Of course, she said no. There were medical booths with medicine in the arena, but he still came all the way here to ask her. He really knew how to get under a girl's skin. Standing at a distance, watching the two argue, Dewi thought about the nanotechnology used in the tournament area. It was nanotechnology. Nurse units used it to heal contestants who had been eliminated. Even extremely serious injuries could be treated, ensuring contestants remained safe and their lives were not at risk. At this point, after Mira's attack, Jin had probably already been treated using that method. Dewi's expression grew more serious. He thought that if the method was really that effective, maybe it could also cure his friend Sung-Tai's illness. Suddenly, a blinding light shone down on the three of them from nowhere. A voice echoed, "Finally, I've found you, the one who hurt my little brother." Dozens of cars' engines blaring and headlights flashing came speeding in. These guys were here to avenge their little brother who got beaten by the trio back in Chapter 4, though by now they might not even remember who he was. They charged toward the three of them. In the blink of an eye, they were all taken down. One of them, thinking quickly, threw a lighter at a car that had fallen over and was leaking gasoline. Boom, the car exploded right next to Mira. They took advantage of the chaos to run away. What a bunch of cowards. As she opened her eyes, it seemed Mira had narrowly escaped the explosion thanks to Jin. But seriously, dude, where exactly do you think your hand is on a girl's body right now? Mira was about to turn and give Jin a mouthful of scolding. Then the sword slipped from her hand and fell off the bridge into the water. She quickly jumped onto the railing, ready to dive in and grab it. But Jin was quicker. He grabbed her, advising her to think twice, because jumping from the bridge meant at least a 10-meter drop. She turned to him, her eyes now different. She swung her hand and slapped Jin, and told him to go away. She wanted to be alone. Although he looked a bit confused, he still decided to turn away. Mira approached Dewi and told him he should leave as well. After a moment of silence, Dewi spoke up, saying the wound on Jin's back was probably very deep, but hidden beneath his jacket. I think it's because he was trying to protect you. Mira replied indifferently. So what? Knowing that saying more wouldn't help, Dewi also decided to leave. Right after that, she went down beneath the bridge on her own to search for the sword. With her phone in her mouth to shine light into the water, she thought about Jin's earlier questions. Maybe he was right. She always thought about the sword, but never really took care of it properly. She recalled how as a child she had constantly trained with the sword. Her hands had grown rough and calloused. She never had the chance to wear nail polish or be girly like other girls. She once thought her best friend could never pursue art with hands as rough and ugly as hers. As she reflected and looked down at her own hands, she likely felt deep anger toward her father. Then her phone ran out of battery. The only source of light suddenly went out. Mira wasn't even sure what she was thinking anymore. Suddenly a light shone from behind her. It was Jin. He had connected a car battery to a headlight to illuminate the area. In that moment, he accidentally saw Mira crying. Jin spoke up, hoping she wouldn't misunderstand. He just wanted her to remember this moment and maybe repay him someday. Mira abruptly turned away. With her personality, there was no way she could ask someone for help. Jin, frustrated, snapped, "What's so hard about saying two simple words, thank you?" But with the same stubborn tone, Mira still blamed everything on Jin. After searching for a while with no luck, they lay down on the grassy riverbank. Mira asked if she should just give up on the sword. Jin asked, "Wasn't that sword really important to you?" Mira replied that her father had given it to her when he was about to die. Jin suddenly sat up, and Mira softly told him not to feel awkward. She confided that in reality, the sword had belonged to her father and was just an ordinary wooden sword, and just like Jin said, she hadn't taken proper care of it. Still, she couldn't stand seeing someone else touch it, and when it was gone, she felt completely empty inside. After hearing her out, Jin laughed and said, "You're such an idiot. Is that what you meant when you called it mine? You didn't care when you had it, and now you feel empty when it's gone." Mira raised her hand toward the sky, staring at it as she quietly reflected on the meaning of the word mine. A moment later, she suddenly sat up. Her face brightened. She had changed her mind and decided to search for the sword. She teased Jin, warning him he'd have to stay up all night helping her look for it. While they joked around, a blinding light suddenly appeared behind them. It was Dewi. He had returned, accompanied by the street racers from earlier. It seemed he had gone all the way to their hideout to find them, rather than just running into them by chance, as he claimed. With the street racers' headlights illuminating the area, Mira's sword was found with ease. 3 days after the incident with the lost sword, their official match began beneath the Cokes building. Contestants, including those eliminated, gathered to watch. The massive arena echoed with cheers from thousands of spectators. Mira, wielding the moonlight sword, easily defeated Han Cheol, who used Muay Thai in Group A. Han Dewi, using Kyokushin Karate, quickly defeated Woo Jong-jin, a Sumudo fighter, in Group A. Jin Mori, placed in Group B, also secured an easy victory. Although he practiced Taekwondo, Jin used only his left-handed punches to defeat his opponent, drawing much attention. Among the spectators was Mansuk as well. He watched closely, muttering something about Jin under his breath. Jin was also watching, trying to locate Mao, until an announcement appeared on the display screen. He was set to appear in the next match and was placed in Group B just like Jin. A voice called Jin's name from behind. He turned to see a man rapidly demonstrating martial arts moves with his hands. Then the man stomped the ground and bowed his head to thank Jin for his earlier help. His name was Go Gamdo, scheduled to face Mansuk in the upcoming match. Jin forced a smile and tried to deny it since he hadn't meant to help that time, but he believed Gamdo was just being polite. Gamdo said he had learned a lot from Jin because before that, he focused only on attack levels and lacked worthy opponents, which weakened him. But Jin helped him realize what true martial arts is, and he was very grateful. At that moment, the MC's voice echoed announcing Gamdo's match with Mansuk was about to begin. He smiled at Jin and turned away. Jin pulled down his blindfold and warned him to be careful because Mansuk was very strong. Gamdo stayed silent for a moment, then said he wasn't afraid of failure, only afraid of losing to an opponent he couldn't respect. The pressure before the match was intense. Gamdo and Mansuk stepped onto the stage and faced each other. The MC said the match would continue until one person was defeated or surrendered. Thanks to nanoparticles, participants' lives were safe so they could fight at full strength. Gamdo criticized Mansuk for straying from true martial arts, but Mansuk showed no interest. Gamdo asked him to remove his restraint jacket, but Mansuk seemed unwilling. And the match began. Gamdo swiftly stepped aside and delivered a powerful punch to Mansuk's stomach. This move was called the rabbit's jump. Mansuk staggered and fell backward off balance. Taking advantage of the momentum, Gamdo launched a flurry of strikes to his face and stomach. After that, Gamdo smoothly spun his body once, then immediately delivered a strike that sent Mansuk flying off the stage to the audience's astonishment. This surprised everyone because Gamdo was completely overwhelming Mansuk. Mansuk was blown off the stage. If he didn't return within 20 seconds, he would be disqualified. The countdown began, and Gamdo asked the audience to help him get up. It seemed Mansuk had been holding back until now. Despite being overwhelmed, he wasn't hurt at all. In fact, he had incredible pain tolerance. He started getting heated and cursed constantly. Seemingly excited, he broke into a smile. As he stepped back onto the stage, Gamdo immediately rushed toward him. Suddenly, Gamdo launched a signature front kick. Spinning midair, he brought down a powerful axe kick from above. Mansuk blocked the strike with his hand, catching Gamdo off guard briefly, and quickly dodged his counterattack. He stood up and jumped back twice. Looking up, he realized Mansuk had removed his right arm from the jacket. After cracking his neck a few times, Mansuk leapt up and lunged straight toward Gamdo. It seemed that a few people recognized this technique. Mansuk grabbed Gamdo by the hair. The audience buzzed with excitement. Since when did Taekwondo have a technique like that? The blue-haired girl in the black suit standing inside the arena spoke up. This is a cowardly move used to survive in war, not in sports. Mansuk tightly grabbed Gamdo's hair and yanked it backward. He gave a victorious smile, then raised his leg high and struck down hard on Gamdo's spine. The blue-haired girl spoke again. Here, slashing throats, stabbing, striking lower backs, everything is allowed. Jin remained seated silently with his eyes covered. He wasn't asleep, but watching the match. It looked like Gamdo had fallen before Mansuk. This was North Korea's ITF Taekwondo style. Over 50 years ago in the Republic of Korea, a group of assassins infiltrated South Korea. Out of 38, 37 were killed. Only one person was captured alive. The government wanted to test this prisoner's skills, so they brought out 50 martial artists from the South to fight him. Each match was one-on-one. The result, 15 were injured, 9 knocked unconscious, and 26 died. The martial art he used was called Taekwondo. At first, Taekwondo was unified, but over time it split into two factions. One side is the WTF, the World Taekwondo Federation, commonly used in South Korean sports. The other is the ITF, the International Taekwondo Federation, which allows punches as well as kicks, and is mainly practiced in North Korea. However, the ITF does not exist in South Korea. The North Korean government began merging the ITF with martial arts from Russia and China. Using Russia's advanced technology, they analyzed 5,000 years of Chinese kung fu. They also studied techniques from other martial arts like wrestling and throwing, combining the strengths of each into the ITF. A man with all these skills would be a killing machine. This technique was used for North Korea's warfare. The blue-haired girl spoke seriously. Mansuk is using ITF. He frowned and loosened his grip, causing Gamdo to fall. Gamdo was panting confused about what he was doing. He taunted that if he didn't let go, Gamdo wouldn't be able to get down easily. Those words angered Gamdo. Anger can provide strength to the human body. However, relying only on anger will eventually destroy you. It grants great strength, but causes significant damage during recovery. Now, anger without anger must be balanced by harmony between good and evil. The body feels anger, but you must control it. Balance your emotions and find your emotional center. Use your emotions to strike a specific point, and you will awaken to the Tai Chi of Taiji Quan. Gamdo panted, overwhelmed by countless thoughts swirling in his mind. Mansuk sat down in front of him and said he was thinking about what one thinks during a match while the opponent stands right before them. As soon as he finished speaking, he kicked Gamdo sharply in the face. He kept attacking continuously from that kick to the next strike. The anger inside Gamdo had reached its peak. He closed his eyes and unleashed his final move. This move was called enlightenment. After executing the move, he stomped his foot on the ground. His body was unharmed. On the contrary, he smiled with satisfaction. Gamdo was stunned witnessing this scene. At that moment, Mansuk finally spoke. You said you used Tai Chi and the 5 elements of yin-yang to attack, but it's just a shockwave. It's too weak at the moment it hit me. All I had to do was redirect it back. It's called the rebound of the northern wave. Right after he finished speaking, Gamdo was immediately knocked backward by his own technique. Mira watched and realized that's why when she attacked him from behind before he wasn't hurt at all. He told Mira that he didn't fight back because he didn't want to hurt her. Standing in the center of the arena, he shouted, "Anyone who wants to live, give up and get out right now." The whole arena buzzed at his words. Jin and Dewi continued watching the match, and him closely, but said nothing. The red-haired guy standing inside the hall wondered how he had learned something like that. The blue-haired girl just stood there silently watching him. 3 years ago, when Mansuk was 16, he punched anyone he came across. After punching them, he mocked them as weaklings. Back then he was just a street punk. But one day, under clear skies and a cool breeze, he was ambushed and hospitalized for 30 weeks. During recovery, he used the art of concealment to disappear without leaving a trace. A year later, he was seen at Busan High School. Mansuk, now a villain, muttered to himself, "Time to smash some things. It's payback time." That day, he killed more than 300 students without a scratch on his body. It was later confirmed that during his absence he practiced North Korean Taekwondo. The defendant remained silent throughout the trial. The red-haired guy asked softly, "So no one knows what really happened?" She replied, "Even now it's just a rumor. But some say they saw him enter a high school where 2/3 of the students were seriously injured, all while wearing that restraint jacket. He's a monster." Mansuk was beating Gamdo to a pulp on stage. "Come on." "Not again," someone muttered. Below the stage, Group B members watched the match, trembling with fear. Everyone wondered how they could possibly face him. No one dared challenge the monster gang Mansuk, but who was the unlucky bastard to face him last? Jin, a level 6 fighter, calmly napped. Jae-hee, level 8, trembled with excitement. Things were about to get interesting. Group B members kept their distance from each other. The others were extremely jealous, despite being very lucky themselves. Gamdo was grabbed by the collar like a chicken, gasping for breath and recalling his master's words. "You always wanted strength even when fighting in cages, but that's not the kind of strength you were searching for." One day, he met an old man who ate 4 skewers at once, laughing loudly and cursing at a gang of punk kids. He wanted to teach them a lesson, but ended up going easy on them. The gangsters got hurt, but the old man didn't even break a sweat. You searched high and low for him, and there he was. A person can hide their skills, but cannot suppress themselves when provoked. You begged him to become your master. One day a fire broke out at the orphanage where he worked. There were no casualties, but the old man had to pay for the damages. A fierce heart can be felt, but never seen. The old man knew his life was coming to an end, so he had nothing left to hold on to. He just needed to walk away from it all. In the end, he was hospitalized from overworking himself to pay for the compensation. When granted a wish by the justice envoy, Gamdo had only one: to find those who harmed his master and bring them to justice. That's why he couldn't accept losing to scum like Mansuk. Meanwhile, Mansuk grinned, watching him struggle in his grasp. "Go on," he said. "Beg me, say please let me go." He no longer had the strength to fight, but had enough left to shout in his face. "Shut up, I don't, and will never intend to bow down to you." And just like that, Mansuk said, "Now you know who's more hard-headed, literally." He sneered and asked, "What, I didn't hear that. Say it again." Gamdu coughed violently, then said again, "I will never bow down to scum like you." Mansuk remembered how he once knelt and begged someone not to kill him. That foolish memory made him furious. Mansuk growled, "I told you to beg for mercy." As soon as he finished speaking, Mansuk unleashed a powerful punch straight into Gamdu's stomach, causing his eyes to roll back. But Gamdo was still mumbling, "Not yet." Mansuk snapped, going wild as he beat Gamdo like a rag doll, leaving the audience and contestants trembling in fear. He screamed, begging for mercy. "Please, please, please." The MC excitedly commented, "He keeps shouting for mercy yet shows no mercy at all. Yes, he's truly dangerous." Mansuk arrogantly grabbed Gamdo and lifted him high, asking, "Do you feel cold?" But surprised Namdo still had the strength to land a punch that made Mansuk's nose bleed, leaving him stunned and frozen. Through gritted teeth, he repeated, "I will never beg for your mercy." Those words echoed in Mansuk's head, making him dizzy and unsteady. "I'll use both hands, just like you wanted." With that, Mansuk pulled out his other arm. He grabbed Gamdo tightly, spun him 180 degrees, and said, "Hang in there, you piece of trash." He gripped tightly with both hands, then mockingly said, "Now let's try again, little kung fu boy." The MC excitedly commented on the match. "He's got his arms locked. Contestant Nam Do is in trouble." Suddenly a voice asked if another contestant could enter the stage. As the MC turned to respond, well, normally no, but he realized no one was there anymore. Mansuk down below grinned with pleasure as he watched Gamdo in pain. "How does it feel?" he asked. Gamdu finally couldn't take it anymore. He screamed out in pain. Seeing that, Mansuk became even more twisted and said, "Shout louder, shout until you die." Just when it seemed his story was about to end, a ghost from England suddenly appeared and poked Mansuk in the back. Jin laughed excitedly and said to him, "I'm out now, hey hey." Both contestants and audience were terrified. Mansuk aggressively elbowed backward, shouting, "Get lost." But just for fun, Jin's dad told him to give Mansuk a jaw-breaking punch. The MC exclaimed in astonishment, "Did you see that, gentleman?" Jin twisted Mansuk's arm and told him to stand up. "I hit you hard. You need to calm down." Mansuk yelled furiously, "Damn it, it's you again. You're starting to piss me off." He launched himself like a whirlwind toward Jin, shouting, "Don't mess with me, you trash." Jin calmly showed that Mansuk was already worn out. He swung his leg, gave Mansuk a kick, causing the entire stage to tremble. The screen flashed a notification, "Editing in progress." Jin's level had risen to 13. Mansuk spun around wildly, mumbling confusedly to himself. What? He was given a free ticket to experience the whirlwind and windstorm. All his sandals flew off, scattering outside the ring and smashing into the wall, leaving a hole. The audience and contestants gasped loudly, jaws almost dropping. But when they checked Jin's level, it had actually decreased. He didn't use his legs to level up. Unfortunately, Jin was now surrounded by 4 guards. Answering the viewer's question, the MC announced, "This is a level check for the guards. Contestant number 41. Jin Moji will be confined until they eliminate him. Please stay quiet and comply." Meanwhile, Jin was busy assessing the guards, thinking, "Wow, these guys are ridiculous. This one's blind." Q exclaimed, "Oi, oi, oi, this is no joke." He tilted his head toward R and said, "Jin's rank just jumped to 13 for a moment. Now I see how he broke your arm." The audience was stunned to hear he had actually injured a guard. "Let's find out why they reacted this way," they said. Many locals had grown too accustomed to the sound of revving motorcycle exhausts. And when they approached with the arbitrator, most people didn't dare call the police. But Jin was an exception. He wasn't afraid of anyone. He was a monster. Q saw R staring at him and quickly asked, "What are you looking at?" Only then did he realize he had misspoken and apologized to his friend. Jin raised his arm and pointed straight at R's face. "You want a rematch?" he demanded. The girl with the dark expression cast a spell binding his hands. "That's enough, number 41. They couldn't stand his arrogance any longer, but mostly she was bitter because she had bet on Mansuk, who was done for. Mansuk sat quietly in a corner, panting heavily. His mind drifted back 13 years. Back then, Mini Mansuk had no idea what the beggar's sect was. His childhood was filled with his parents' constant arguments. He had to witness his mother suffer under his father's beatings. Then he saw his father kneel and beg creditors like a worthless dog. He found it pathetic they were only strong in front of the weak. 10 years later, he smugly watched as everyone fell to their knees before creditors who flooded in like Mongol invaders shouting, "Grab him! Time to pay your debt, you bastard." In the end, the one who won was still him. Let me tell you all something, I will never bow to anyone, so why don't you all run back to your mommy and daddy? But there's no such thing as being undefeated forever. Mansuk eventually had to kneel at someone's feet, getting cursed like a dog. "I heard you're real strong," the man said, "so I didn't mind traveling all the way from Busan through the drizzle and mud. And this is what I get. There's nothing fun about this at all." Mansuk glared fiercely at the man in front of him, making him extremely uncomfortable. "What the hell are you staring at, huh?" Even though Mansuk was already humiliated, he still showed admiration toward the person in front of him. "I don't like you." He sobbed, tears streaming down his face. "We're not the same." And so Mansuk clasped his hands together and begged for mercy. That night at the hospital, he stepped onto the rooftop intending to jump. Mansuk muttered, "I'm different from you. We're not the same." Just as he was about to jump, a voice from behind stopped him. "You want power?" Mansuk spun around in shock and asked, "What did you say?" The mysterious figure extended an invitation. "Come with me. Come with me. I'll give you the power to defeat them all. Ultimate power." Mansuk suddenly went mad and burst into laughter. The security guards hadn't even processed what was happening yet. They were all knocked down by the whirlwind that swept through, leaving only Yane standing firm. Mansuk marched forward with a furious face, muttering, "I will never kneel again." S raised a hand to stop O, who was about to step forward. "Stay back." Mansuk pressed his toes hard into the floor, causing the arena surface to crack and shatter. He unleashed the northern MTF kick, striking Jin's head with a straight, powerful blow. The entire arena floor split into two massive sections. Even the audience seated high in the stands felt the impact. Everyone panicked and scrambled, falling over each other in a rush. But surprised Jin was still standing there, completely unfazed. She may have stayed standing, but blood trickled from his head. He realized the guy had taken off his heavy pants. While Jin was lost in thought, Mansuk charged forward with full force. The muscles in his calves moved like living creatures. They moved in unison, swelling tightly and sharply defined. Mansuk grinned wide, flashing his teeth. That was a greeting. "Now here's my farewell." He swung his leg with full force to kick Jin, but surprise. Jin didn't even bother to warm up. She raised her leg to block him light as a feather. Mansuk stood dumbfounded, confused, and stunned, then fell backward. "What?" Jin pressed her leg down, forcing Mansuk's leg back to the ground. Then in the blink of an eye, she spun around and hooked upward. He spun so fast no one had time to realize what happened. Jin spoke up goodbye. Just as he finished speaking, the ropes of the ring snapped and flew off. Mansuk's clothes were torn to shreds. Mansuk officially collapsed to his knees, his face hitting the floor. Before the audience could catch their breath, they jumped up, cheering loudly. "He did it! He did it!" He was escorted down to the stands amid the audience's admiration and excitement. They muttered, "Not bad, young man." Mira still underestimated his intelligence, eager to fight someone stronger, only to get eliminated. But she liked guys like that, so Jin Mori left the arena to thunderous applause. In the meeting room, the guards discussed Jin's rank. O added that move pushed him up to 3rd place in the country. The blue-haired girl said, according to him, his GP is at its highest. He is the key they are looking for. S agreed. They couldn't have predicted this. It might be one of his special techniques. Q bit down on the plastic strip in his mouth. His level had shifted into a technique they hadn't seen before, but S insisted, "No way you've seen that once before." After a humiliating defeat by ITF Taekwondo, the president ordered research and development to counter ITF Taekwondo. Researchers analyzed ITF's origins, identified its weaknesses, and eliminated it. The invisibility technique was combined to erase a person's presence. Years later, 2 young men, Hei and Bai Wucheng, stood face to face, ready for a spectacular fight. The referee shouted, "Begin." With a splat sound, the man in black declared, "Now we're even." It was a success, the birth of a perfect technique to counter ITF. The South adopted Taekwondo, a modernized form of Taekwondo, as its new name. However, the martial art had a short lifespan. Its practitioners eventually infiltrated the north. But only one person survived and returned, the founder of Re-Taekwondo and sole survivor Jin Tai-jin. Damn, old man S often wondered what he did, and now his disciple appears. Now call judge back. Outside the stands, Mira stood dazed when someone called her. Mi-sun asked, "What do you want?" Mira suddenly remembered and hesitated. She replied she wanted to spread their swordplay to the world. Mi-sun blew bubbles and exclaimed, "So serious?" Mira asked, "What about you, Mi-sun?" She didn't answer immediately, but looked up toward the upper level. Her dream was simple. She wanted to beat up all the judges. However, one judge resisted and looked down on her, yet showed a caring and affectionate side. The MC announced the next match was about to begin. "Contestants, please step onto the stage." It was Mi-sun's turn. As she walked past Mira, she asked, "Do you understand now?" Mira heard the voice, raised her wrist to check her bracelet, and looked in the direction Mi-sun had walked away. That girl. Her opponent was a young man who looked completely drained by capitalist overwork. As soon as he saw a female opponent, he screamed and rushed forward, shouting, "I want you, I want you." Mi-sun sighed in pity and silently bade farewell to the poor guy. The MC lowered his hand and shouted, "Fight!" Mi-sun moved like lightning, swiftly grabbing the lucky guy. He muttered under his breath, "I'm really not that lucky after all." With boy. As soon as he finished speaking, she flipped herself over and slammed his head into the floor. Mi-sun's fighting style was professional wrestling. With just one move, she sent her opponent flying straight to heaven. The audience nearly dropped their jaws at Mi-sun's strength. Her attack level was 10. So don't ask how a girl that hot could take out her opponent in just one move. Mira muttered, realizing she was Mi-sun's next opponent. But one detail hadn't been mentioned. Mi-sun's house was next to a bomb crater, so explosions she grew up with were pretty loud. The scene shifted to the next match. Sang-min, level 8, carried his opponent on his back, preparing to slam him down. But somehow Sung Cheon, level 7, and his opponent had already slipped out unnoticed. He coldly asked, "Are you done yet?" Sang-min quickly jumped back to defend himself. Sung Cheon raised a baseball bat high and slammed it down. Sang-min predicted the swing would come down on the left and dodged right, but Sung Cheon feigned surprise and said, "Oh." Then he swung the bat sideways to the right. The audience couldn't close their mouths in shock again. He changed the bat's trajectory mid-swing. Sang-min had just been struck, but lunged straight at Sung Cheon. He slammed him straight into the ground. While silently cheering himself on for pulling it off, Sung Cheon looked down on him with contempt. "You didn't know you're lacking IQ, did you?" Before Sang-min could react, the bat swung from behind. Sang-min glanced back, then, wham! A blow to the head knocked him out cold. The final result, Baek Sung Cheon from Group A claimed victory. Daewoo sat in the stands, craning his neck in anticipation. He was the next opponent. Q puffed on his cigarette as his hands shuffled cards rapidly and skillfully. It had been quite some time since they last fought, remember? Now R reached up to adjust his tie and said, "Let me tell you something. You should quit smoking," R said. But Q kept puffing away, not caring at all. He was still angry about R revealing his secret. Seeing that R stayed silent, Q knew he was sulking. "Hit the sore spot, didn't I?" he teased. Q tossed the deck of cards he'd been shuffling into the air and asked R so. R was truly Q's old buddy. If Q liked to ignore things, he'd just go along with it. The two shot toward each other like bullets. Even the factory next to them couldn't withstand it and exploded into pieces. R was slashed by one of Q's cards, which made Q extremely pleased with himself as he mocked, "You're slowing down." Yet R still sincerely advised his friend, "Quit smoking, it'll keep you from dying early." Now R finally counterattacked, shouting, "Take this." A whirlwind charged straight at Q from behind, catching him completely off guard. He thought it was just one, but no, 3 whirlwinds swept toward him simultaneously. In a nearby corner, Agent O leaned against the wall, reporting to the boss. "Judges Q and R, where are they?" O answered honestly. "They're fighting each other, sir." Shocked, the boss ordered O to stop them, but O hesitated, unsure what to do. The boss, stunned by the refusal, asked O in confusion. But O just pulled out a bag of popcorn, munching away as he watched the non-stop brawl. "I'm on break," he said. Q and R played an intense game of tag, showing no signs of stopping. Q jumped up and launched a card attack, pretending to continue, but this time R was much smarter. He used the wind's force to lift himself and jumped up, dodging Q's cards. From above, R looked down and warned, "Be careful, Q." He landed and immediately unleashed a whirlwind storm attack on Q. Q realized R was going all out this time and cursed, "Damn it." The whirlwind flew straight at him, leaving no time to react. You'd think the battle ended there, but no, Q was still standing after the whirlwind. Just a little roughed up. Annoyed, he bit through his cigarette. He snapped his glasses in excitement and shouted, "Now I'm pissed. Let's have an all-out brawl." R added fuel to the fire by mocking, "You're too weak, Q." Furious, Q shouted, "Are you trying to provoke me?" R calmly replied, "Just fight." O did absolutely nothing. He had a whole movie to watch, happily munching popcorn and sipping his drink. Out of nowhere, a tough-looking guy appeared and said, "That's enough." With his bare hands, he slammed Q and R to the ground, pinning them tightly. Naturally, O didn't escape the same fate. This guy was Mujin, 35 years old, almost 40, but still looking fresh and sharp. He spoke up. "What the hell is going on here?" R, his back aching from being pinned, could barely speak clearly. "Judge Beck, why are you so freakishly strong?" Q also couldn't find words. The guy was as bizarre as his name, Mujin. That was his real name. Before they could blurt out Mujin's full name, he slammed them down again kindly, reminding them, "Try to be a little more polite, will you?" Mujin flashed a friendly smile and told them, "I heard there's something quite interesting going on." The scene shifted to the meeting room. Mujin said to S, "Go ahead, tell me all about it." S gave a brief summary, titled Jin Mori, 17 years old, and "Get to the point." Mujin asked, "Are you certain Jin learned Taekwondo?" S replied confidently, "Sure." Mujin reminded him with a superior tone, "You need to show me more respect. I'm above you, you know. Sometimes you have to bow your head for other things." S muttered under his breath, "Damn this arrogant bastard." The Organization for Human Culture, also known as the Six, are high-ranking martial arts masters. They operate under the president's command and receive massive salaries. Mujin is a member of the Six and serves as the rules coordinator. Every 10 years they gather to fight each other. The winner earns the title of the Special One. When Jin Tai-jin returned from North Korea, they were sent to bring him in, but that man beat them to a pulp. "He's a real beast," Mujin said. S muttered to himself, calculating 17 years. It's rare for all members of the Six to gather only to be defeated by a nameless man. "You think they call it the shame of the Organization for Human Culture?" S asked with a smirk. Mujin replied coldly, "That's just your name for it. Don't make up random titles for history. Who are you anyway? Just a high school teacher." S had a small question. "Why target Jin Tai?" "Jin first," Mujin replied. "They sent 500 people and only he came back alive. Of course, they're going to have some questions." He also wondered where the person who gave him this scar had gone. But raising a child on a mountain, S suddenly remembered something. "Speaking of that scar, back then you used me as a shield, didn't you?" S said. "Every time he got beat up, Mujin would just pull you in front, super convenient." Mujin pretended to have no memory of it, ignoring S's thunderous curses echoing through the room. After all the shouting and arguing, Mujin wrapped it up. "Anyway, I'll make sure Jin spills everything, every bit of info, and his connection to that grandfather of his. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear." Jin nodded and immediately confirmed that Tae-jin was indeed his grandfather. Mujin hadn't expected him to answer so quickly, so he took the chance to ask, "What about your parents?" As soon as his parents were mentioned, Jin grew emotional and burst into tears. His grandfather had found him abandoned on a mountain. Did Mujin really have to be so heartless? Seeing Jin cry, S panicked and rushed over to comfort him. Mujin suddenly squatted down right in front of him. Jin thought he was about to get beaten up, but no. He sat down and gently pinched Jin's cheeks with overflowing affection. Jin stared blankly at the man in front of him, completely confused. Mujin quietly convinced himself, "I've just been really busy, old man." To Jin, they might really be able to catch Grandpa Tae-jin. Mujin sweet-talked him. "Can you tell your amazing big brother here where your grandpa lives?" Jin cheerfully recited his home address in one go. He was completely melted by Jin's innocence and honesty, such a pure heart, so quick to trust, so incredibly naive and sincere. Back at the deathmatch arena, the MC hyped up the crowd. "Welcome everyone to the next round of GOH. The 8th round will begin shortly, with the only 2 female contestants in the tournament. Stay tuned and don't blink. We can already hear the screams of all the single guys. Somehow the boys have gathered and formed their own cheering squads." Mi-sun suddenly hunched forward, startling Mira. "What are you doing?" she asked. Mi-sun said she was just checking the map a bit to see if Mira was anything like her. Mira stayed silent, observing Mi-sun's blistered fingers and peeling skin. With a kind smile, Mi-sun offered her a small piece of advice. "You should change your weapon," Mi-sun said, "because that staff won't work on me." Mira stood there, confused, not understanding what she meant. The MC dropped his hand to signal enough talk, it's time to fight. Mi-sun didn't hesitate, she raised her fist and threw a punch at Mira. "Showtime!" Mira nervously raised her wooden sword to block in front of her. Seeing that Mi-sun let out a soft chuckle and teased, "Better hold on tight." The girl swiftly twisted her body sideways and launched a tornado kick, sending Mira flying 10 meters away. Then, with quick feet, she landed smoothly and charged at Mira once more. Contestant Mi-sun was on the attack again. But this time Mi-sun was a bit too slow. Mira timed it perfectly and swung her sword down with precision. It hit just think it would have caused Mi-sun at least some injury. But Mi-sun simply raised her hand, grabbed Mira by the shoulder, and slammed her straight down onto the arena floor. What the heck? The attack failed, and she got slammed down to the floor. Mira was stunned. She never imagined there'd be a day she'd suffer such a crushing defeat like this. Mi-sun swiftly stood up on the arena floor, spun around, and slammed both her melons straight into Mira's face. This time she was luckier. Mira twisted her body and dodged Mi-sun's body slam. What the heck is going on, she thought. Mi-sun let out a sigh of relief and asked, "I look like a troublemaker, don't I?" They're professional wrestlers trained to have bodies tougher than the legal limit way, stronger than most guys out there. It's true Mi-sun's HP is 800 double that of Mira. She's even stronger than most men. Mi-sun proudly flexed and said, "Thanks to my hellish training, this body's tougher than steel." Her fans listened to her flex and turned pale with fear. But Mira's sword techniques weren't to be underestimated either. Mi-sun said, "You really should get rid of that stick." Mira tensed up, preparing to defend herself. Mi-sun stepped back and used her strength to stretch the rope surrounding the arena. Mi-sun shouted fight and sprang toward Mira. Mira quietly calculated Mi-sun's body was incredibly tough, and her center of gravity was too low to target effectively. "All right then, let's give it a try." Mi-sun was a bit surprised when she saw Mira's attack stance. Mira wanted to test just how tough Mi-sun's stomach really was. She swung her sword straight at Mi-sun's midsection. But in front of her now there was no one. Just in the blink of an eye, Mi-sun had flipped herself upside down and grabbed onto Mira's shoulders. She hadn't expected the girl to leap up while sprinting. Mi-sun let out a sly giggle. It's not over yet. She flipped herself again and slammed Mira's head straight down onto the arena floor. Mira's HP dropped to a dangerously low level. Mi-sun grabbed Mira's staff and hurled it out of the arena. "That's the end of that," she declared. The MC kept commentating, "Non-stop, you Mira can't even stand anymore." Meanwhile, Mi-sun turned to the audience, smiling brightly. "Did you all enjoy my performance?" The crowd erupted in wild cheers and screams, completely losing themselves in excitement. Suddenly, Mira muttered, "A body harder than steel." She had officially risen from the grave. This time she didn't even bother using her sword, how interesting. Mi-sun blew a lazy bubble and sneered. "Boring." "She's actually fighting bare-handed now," Mira calmly replied. "There are many ways to use a sword. One of them is the no-sword style. You'd better get ready." Mi-sun wasn't scared at all, she taunted. "Come on, sweetheart, Mira, bring it on." In that case, Mira slashed through the air. The force of it made Mi-sun freeze in place as if she'd been hit with hairspray. Mi-sun broke out in a cold sweat and quickly raised her hand to check her chest, then gasped in horror, breathing heavily. "What the hell was that?" Mira praised her for her quick reaction, which had saved her life. Now Mi-sun finally knew what fear felt like. She was badly cut with only 73 HP left. Mira could sacrifice an arm and finish her off with a backdrop move. The plan sounded very doable, making Mi-sun feel much more confident. She was certain that nanotechnology could regenerate her arm. All she needed was to use her wish. But wait a minute. She couldn't use her wish for that, which is why she came here. Mi-sun nervously thought, "Having one arm is my wish come true." So in the end, she raised her hand to surrender to the MC, still not understanding what was going on. Anyway, Mira had won. Under the stand's audience member, so Huang picked up Mi's sword and happily prepared to claim it for himself. But Mira shot him a fierce glare, making him quickly back off and return the sword. The next match was Daewee going solo against Sung Cheol. Handsome Daewee, wearing a white shirt that made many girls swoon, did a few basic warm-up moves. Next up was himself Right. He remembered Jin again. The technique he used was truly re-taekwondo. Anyway, the previous clash with him wasn't his concern. He just needed to forget about it. The two contestants, Han Daewee and contestant Baek Sung Cheol, stepped onto the arena. The MC stood between them, raising his hand to signal the contestants to get ready. There is no limit on weapons. The match will stop when your opponent is unconscious or gives up. Sung Chul let his mind drift with the clouds, recalling his childhood days. He memorized the Korean alphabet at age 3 and thousands of classic works by age 4. He always read books, and his father told him, just for fun. But his father reminded him, this world is not only about books, but also about the people around you. Sometimes you need to run and play with your friends to understand this world. His father was a detective in the organized crime division. He had put many bad guys behind bars with a baseball bat. To him, his father was a hero of justice. Then one day his father succeeded in capturing the leader of a criminal gang. He thought this time he had made a great achievement, but unexpectedly a huge storm came and swept him away. The criminal was released by the prosecutor due to lack of evidence. His father could only go home and get drunk because he couldn't accept it. On such a beautiful day. His father was ambushed and killed by an unknown person. At the funeral, a man came to pay respects, reaching out to comfort his mother and him saying, "Please accept my condolences." He immediately recognized that man as the prosecutor, who had decided there was not enough evidence. Detectives catch criminals, but those who judge them are the ones with higher education. In the end, what keeps the world turning is not violence, but knowledge. Since then, 6-year-old Sung Chul threw himself into studying like crazy. At age 8, he mastered 9 languages. At age 9, physics, chemistry, and mathematics. At age 11, both Eastern and Western philosophy. At 13, modern medicine and sports. And at age 15, Sung Chul witnessed his classmate being bullied just for not buying soda for another student. Sung Chul squatted down and asked the boy who was being bullied, "Why did you let yourself get beaten? Why didn't you fight back or tell the teacher?" The bullied boy looked at him in confusion and asked, "What are you talking about? How could you ever come back to school if you did that?" He was right. Even if he reported the bullies, they would come back after 2 or 3 months, and everything would be the same. Even if they got expelled, who would protect him on the way home from school or on weekends? Knowledge is stronger than violence, but in reality, violence is always closer. So 5 seconds later, Sung Chul already had the answer. It was really simple. You just need to be good at both fields. On a day with blue skies, white clouds, and golden sunlight, a group of teenage boys was bullying an unlucky kid when they suddenly froze. The Knight of Justice Sung Chul arrived and took down all 4 attackers at once, leaving them terrified. And then, reaching the supreme realm as the almighty ruler of heaven and earth, they offered him one wish. But Sung Chul did not need it. He only wanted to see how far his knowledge could take him. The referee's shout for preparation brought Sung Chul back to the match. The MC lowered his hand and said, "Fight." As soon as he finished speaking, Sung Chul, like a whirlwind, swung the baseball bat in his hand at Daewee's weak spot. He had not even managed to strike yet, it already hit the vital spot. Sung Chul muttered, "Too easy." Contestant Han Daewee had fallen. Jin sat in the VIP room watching and sighed with admiration. He landed 3 strikes before his opponent could even throw a punch. Daewee took a deep breath, then smiled and stood up. "This is really interesting." Sung Chul muttered prayers under his breath, 1 strike to the temple, 2 to the shoulder, and 1 to the knee. Daewee threw a bare-handed punch straight at him. Sung Chul frowned in annoyance. It was always like that. Because he had already analyzed all attack patterns, he could easily dodge fast punches. First he would dodge to the right. 1 the temple, 2 the right shoulder, 3 the left shoulder, 4 the knee. Step by step, just like that. And here it comes. After landing the hits count from 1 to 5. Bingo. The MC was astonished and wondered if he would fall. According to theory, that should be the case, but even Sung Chul was surprised by Daewee. He hit him like that, yet he still did not fall. But why was he not attacking? Daewee immediately replied, "That is the action of a coward." When Sung Chul heard him say that, he immediately knew this was a man of style. He had sparked Sung Chul's interest. Sung Chul and Daewee spun like a whirlwind on the arena floor. The MC shouted loudly, asking how long they could maintain this. Contestant Han Daewee, kept throwing punches even though none landed while contestant Baek Sung-chul seemed to anticipate every movement. Sung-chul dodged while launching powerful counterattacks. Just one solid hit, and Dae-wi would lose. He needed to finish this quickly. Sung-chul glanced around looking for Dae-wi's weak point. There it was. He found it. "Your legs are just like a few little river perch. How do you expect to beat me?" Dae-wi said. "That's old news," Sung-chul. His nostalgic legs swung up and delivered a kick to his ribs. Dae-wi's attack was not blocked. He breathed a sigh of relief, finally landing a hit and thinking he could take a break. But carelessly he stepped on the baseball bat, definitely earning 10 points for clumsiness. Baek Sung-chul had calculated where Dae-wi would land and threw the bat there. Sung-chul retracted the baseball bat and muttered, "This thing is very interesting." Dae-wi agreed with him, "Yes, very good." "You can't calculate everything, but he can." Sung-chul replied, "That's right." Dae-wi, unsure where he got so much strength, stood up and rushed forward to throw punches at Sung-chul. For him, that was already good enough. Next, the strange thing was this time Sung-chul still dodged the attack, but didn't strike back at Dae-wi, and just stopped. The MC couldn't hide his curiosity either. What was going on with Sung-chul not fighting back? He was silent, calculating to deliver a deadly blow to Dae-wi. This had to be done quickly. When he found the opportunity, he would attack and leave an opening, and that was his chance. Before he attacked, he needed to get within striking range, but man proposes, Geoch disposes. He thought he could run freely, but the muddy water made Sung-chul slip. Oh no, he suddenly remembered his blood and sweat on the battlefield. Sung-chul could only stare helplessly as Dae-wi's punch flew straight at his face. Damn it. A resounding crash echoed through the air. But surprisingly, Sung-chul was completely unharmed. On the contrary, the one who took the hit was Dae-wi. Sung-chul doubted his mind was broken and had to check if he was okay, since he didn't strike him. Dae-wi calmly said, "Exactly. You slipped, and I am not a coward to take advantage of that to hit you." Sung-chul saw a familiar figure nearby. This guy looked just like his father, the righteous man who always firmly believed that justice would live forever in this world. Sung-chul flicked away Dae-wi's outstretched arm. So annoying, stop pretending to be a hero. Now the fight gets serious. Sung-chul thought in his head how pitiful it was. What's going on with you? This time Sung-chul is not using the staff anymore. He officially joins the battle with Dae-wi. First is the attack with 12 spear strikes. He was as light as a feather, gliding past Dae-wi, leaving him no time to react. On his body were 12 wounds bleeding all over. The pain did not come immediately for him to feel, but after a while made him suffer so much that he collapsed as if 12 spears had pierced through him at once. Dae-wi sat down, slumped on the fighting floor. But he still firmly blocked the way. Sung-chul leaving made him extremely irritated. That's enough. The result is already clear. Why keep pushing so hard? Be careful or you'll push too far. Dae-wi, in a daze, remembered an old friend who had always encouraged him. This process will be very difficult, hang in there. He had also witnessed the pain and confusion and asked, "Don't you ever feel tired?" He only responded with a bright smile on his lips. Life is a battle. You have to fight to live. There was someone he needed to save, and that person had never given up just like him. Sung-chul even complimented his recklessness. Dae-wi reminded him to reconsider his own luck. The next technique was something he already knew, so he guessed it was the only thing he could use to hit him and win right. Sung-chul scoffed with a mocking laugh at his confidence. "Defeat me," he said, immediately taking his stance. "Let's put your theory to the test." This time it was 72 spear strikes attacking. Dae-wi no longer held back his moves either. He unleashed the skill of 4 martial stances, the first stance being the 3-section fist. Sung-chul and 72 spears were blown away by one punch from Dae-wi in shock. He could only stand stunned at his game-hacking level. What is this? The second stance. It sounds very fancy, phoenix feather. The second strike was a kick to the Southern Guardian's foot. A stomp from Dae-wi shook the fighting floor, causing it to crack and break. The lifeless ground seemed to turn into sinister snakes, slithering quickly towards Sung-chul. They rose from the ground to attack him. Mira realized he had channeled his power into the fighting floor. Sung-chul couldn't withstand the attack and just stood there in confusion. That was too dangerous. The only answer was to retaliate. Thinking about the best attack he could use, not giving him any more time to think, Daewee raised his hand and unleashed the third strike white tiger. A foot silently stomped on his wrist, causing him to falter. Sungchul spun like a fan, stomping on Daewee's hand. Jin, sitting in the VIP room, also recognized that his kick was copied from him. But how could a fake compare to the real deal? Every time he threw a kick, Daewee blocked it right away. He thought this time he could turn the tide. But with just a few kicks, Daewee shattered all of Sungchul's delusional hopes. He was once again pushed into a weak position, only able to raise his hands to block each of Daewee's powerful punches. Daewee took advantage of the opening when Sungchul lifted his hands to protect his face. He punched straight into his chest, making him feel like he was about to reincarnate. Not stopping there, he quickly followed up with another strike to every part of his body. Daewee spun and moved with flair, punching and kicking non-stop. Sungchul was like a training sandbag for him. He didn't have a single chance to counterattack, not even to defend. Daewee knocked him all the way to the edge of the arena, amid the thunderous cheers of the audience. Sungchul was thrown backward, crashing into the arena wall. His clothes were torn and tattered, barely covering him. That looked about right, so Daewee unleashed the finishing move. The fourth move, Green Dragon. Before he could finish reading the name to introduce it to everyone, Sungchul at the edge of the arena flipped forward toward him. More precisely, he jumped face first onto the ground. Daewee saw that he was awake and didn't continue attacking. "All right, I'll save it for later." The audience immediately became excited and screamed loudly. Mira analyzed Daewee's attack. The first move destroyed the offense, the second destroyed the stance, and the third destroyed the defense, leading to a state of furious ruthlessness. "That's amazing, but your body can't handle it." Just as Mira said, Daewee's body was twitching like a severed cable, which proved he had already reached his limit. Daewee also knew that his body still couldn't withstand such immense pressure. Suddenly, he glanced to the side. Next to him, Sungchul, who had just been passionately kissing the ground, was now sluggishly getting back on his feet. He cried out in his heart with unwillingness, Why did I lose? No more importantly, why was he able to stand up when his body was already weakened? Sungchul stared blankly, looking down at the shattered baseball bat in his hand. The image of his father appeared to him again. "You cannot understand the world through books, son. You must go out and experience it." He thought he was doing his duty. Was it all just an illusion? Sungchul smiled faintly and said anyway. He threw the bat handle in his hand onto the arena floor unwillingly and challenged to continue the solo match. He did not like the feeling of losing at all. Daewee just silently looked at him like a clown. Sure enough, he hadn't even been impressive for a minute before he staggered and fell back onto the arena floor. The MC announced that contestant Sungchul had fainted. The winner is Han Daewee. At Mount Jiri, the specific location was somewhere deep in the forest. An elite team of warriors was preparing themselves mentally for battle. The commander confirmed the Omega target and ordered his subordinates to launch the attack quickly. This was his chance for promotion. He lowered his glasses and gave the order, "Let's move in." The team of warriors first dropped smoke bombs to disrupt visibility, then charged forward. "Stand still and raise both hands above your head." On the other end of the line, Ed was shouting desperately, "Alpha, Alpha." The troops remained motionless. Muin asked, "What should we do? Now?" Ed, pale-faced, mourned for his comrades, thinking, they really are a bunch of fools. Inside the house, the weak and harmless old man sat alone, wondering, what is all this commotion about? Ed ordered the warriors to report their status. The commander quickly responded and checked the Omega address. He then asked the old man, "Sorry, but who are you?" The old man replied, "I am Jin Tae-jin, and I will teach them a lesson for daring to break into my house." The group of warriors hadn't even started fighting before they were terrified by Tae-jin's aura. The commander stammered and shouted, "Fire, fire." In his hand he heard desperate calls, "Answer, Alpha, answer." Tae-jin picked up the receiver and asked for information about the person on the other end. "Oh, it's not you, is it?" Moon Gi-ju. At the other end, upon hearing his voice, Moon Gi-ju was startled and got goosebumps. Tae-jin then cautiously asked, "How do you know what your old teacher is doing?" Ed was ruffled and shouted about to lose his temper with the old man, but someone stopped him and told him to stay calm. He grabbed the receiver and spoke to Tae-jin, "Old man, aren't you very happy that you haven't been forgotten yet?" Tae-jin recognized the familiar voice immediately and knew it was someone he knew. If he remembered correctly, it was Bok Mu Bong, still as loud and arrogant as ever. Mujin transferred the call to Jin, who sighed deeply and greeted "Hello, Grandpa." As soon as Tae-jin heard his grandson's voice, he immediately softened. "Oh, my little puppy, my adorable grandson, what are you doing?" Jin excitedly told him that he was participating in a very interesting tournament where they would grant him a wish if he won, but he was eliminated right at the start. Tae-jin scoffed immediately. "What are you talking about? There's no one who can beat you." Jin told him it wasn't like that. There was a guy using Northern Taekwondo. As soon as Tae-jin heard Northern Taekwondo, he became noticeably tense. "Are you sure?" Grandson Jin didn't get to answer before Mujin grabbed the mic and shouted, "Are you listening to me? If you don't do as we say, your precious grandson will pay the price." Tae-jin laughed as if hearing a hilarious joke, bursting out with a hearty laugh. The old man scoffed and told Mujin to listen carefully. "Just try touching a single hair on him, and you won't even need to come to me. If you want to end up on the altar early, go ahead and try." He called out loudly, asking if his grandson was there. Jin quickly replied loudly, "Yes, Grandpa." Tae-jin asked him, "What is your family motto?" Jin recited loudly in one breath, "Hit to strike, clash, to win spoil if you like." Seeing his grandson knew the motto by heart, Tae-jin said he was leaving now. In the meeting room, the General Assembly voting was underway. O voted no, and R also voted no. Jin outside was straining his eyes, pressing his face against the glass, trying to catch what was happening inside. Mujin summarized the votes 4 in favor and 3 against. "What about the other 2 contestants?" The report said, "Contestant Go-gam, do. Told the coach, if Jin hadn't helped, you would have been defeated. You no longer have the right to participate. And contestant Ganman-suk has left the committee." Q was very pleased. Even better, getting rid of a few flat-brained idiots makes things less troublesome. Miss Greenhair immediately argued, "That's not the issue here. If they eliminate him, the other disqualified contestants will start filing complaints." Q simplified the matter, "Then just get rid of them all." While everyone inside was arguing fiercely, the tension was burning high, making Muin frustrated. He glanced outside only to be even more annoyed when he saw the face of the main troublemaker Jin peeking in through the glass. And yet he had a very brilliant idea. Jin's eyes sparkled brightly outside as he asked, "Really? If I fight a judge and win, I can come back?" The bodyguard nodded. Exactly. That's what they agreed on. They also decided to approve him so it would be a fair match. Jin didn't seem worried at all. Instead, he excitedly asked, which judge will I be fighting?" This time, the random draw landed on Q, but he seemed strongly opposed to the idea. "Why does it have to be me?" he protested. Mujin acted haughtily, not even bothering to repeat the reason. He had already said it once. Q immediately knew he was being set up because he had revealed his real name. Q firmly refused, not wanting to get involved in this matter. He thought he was the only one refusing, but Jin shouted even louder. He stubbornly demanded to fight now, not the guy with glasses, but the blonde-haired one. Jin insisted on fighting the blonde with no glasses. Q slammed the door hands in his pockets, stepping out while praising Jin's high spirit. "Let me tell you, you're even stronger than that blonde guy." But Jin refuses to listen and is determined not to fight the guy with glasses. The main reason is that he's just too useless to fight. Q calmly lit a cigarette and told Jin to try fighting him. "I will only use one hand," he added. The bodyguard worriedly tried to stop Q, but he said, "Don't worry, I'll stop at the right moment." The bodyguard was still hesitant and about to continue advising when Mujin stepped out and said, "Just ignore Q." Jin didn't yet know the strength of the judges, so he saw this as a test and planned to make good use of the opportunity. Q was at his wits' end with the sly old fox Muin. He truly was an opportunist. Jin told Q he didn't want to be a killer. Q shrugged dismissively. Without hesitation, Q dashed forward like a slash and delivered a punch straight to Jin's face. He smiled widely, pretending to be innocent. "How strange my fist didn't stop. I'm sure I did stop." Mujin froze, stunned. What was that? Was Jin weak? Had the old man fooled him? Or was he just pretending everyone watched silently as Q acted innocent, putting on a show? Jin lay motionless on the ground amid the noise of the judges. After a moment, his soul finally returned to his body. The bodyguard next to him spread out his hand for Jin to count his fingers, testing if he had been hit hard enough to lose his mind. Jin told him he should consider himself lucky, because this was just a test. The bodyguard, seeing him looking dazed, worriedly asked, "Can you stand up?" "Do you remember anything?" Jin replied with something unrelated. "I will do that." The bodyguard looked puzzled and asked again, "You what?" Jin shouted excitedly that he would fight the green glasses. The bodyguard relayed the information to the other side that Jin had agreed. A few days later, the match between Jin Mori and Judge Q was announced. 17 years ago, Tae-jin smiled faintly as he faced the group in front of him. "Why is this an honor? The six have come to capture you." Tae-jin immediately recognized him as Sin Dong, the famous line. Just like the rumors, he had a dark aura surrounding him. That guy named Sin Dong in the legend was none other than Mu Jin, with a face full of arrogance. Having a beast like that in the six is a problem. You, on the other hand, have no talent at all. Suddenly a new face named Giju appeared and passed by, saying, "Oh, who's that? Do you guys think this is a playground? I pity you all. Swear on your lives and fight me." The result goes without saying. Tae-jin calmly conversed with the six. "Don't be so reckless, especially since you're very annoying." So he took the arm of the guy in front of him as a souvenir. 17 years ago, after the confrontation between Jin Tae-jin and the six, the Republic of Korea lost 10% of its land area. Currently, Mira was scolding Jin sharply because he liked to throw himself into danger. She asked, "Are you lacking common sense?" Jin calmly replied, "I'm not crazy." She then asked, "So why did you agree to fight the judge?" Dae-wai casually walked over to the two of them. "The security around here is pretty lax," Jin replied. "I need to keep myself safe for the match. Then the special training to improve his skills would begin." Dae-wei also got up coldly and turned his back, saying, "I'm leaving now. Have fun." Jin could only shout loudly, trying to hold back the two of them. 4 a.m., counting down 24 hours before the match with Judge Q. Jin was still sprawled out, sleeping soundly like a log. The snoring gradually faded and then stopped completely. He suddenly woke up because he was hungry. In the darkness, it felt like eyes were watching him, making Jin feel puzzled. It seemed like there was a voice coaxing those who could hear it, "Come to me." Jin, half asleep, wondered, "What is that?" He looked around and saw two bodyguards guarding him, snoring even better than himself. Jin sniffed his nose, fascinated by the spreading scent, so fragrant. Jin walked like a zombie, following the tempting scent, saying hungry. After the exhausting journey, Jin had arrived in front of a strange door without even realizing it. When Jin approached and pushed the door open, he was asked to check GP, "Please take one step back from the door." A beam of light scanned through him and there was a notification check complete. The door in front opened. "Welcome." Jin stepped in. Inside the door was an old man with a long beard tied up and hanging like a spider. There were countless needles stabbing into his body. The old man spoke. "You are a special child who can open the door," but before he could finish his words, Jin ignored him, determined to go find food. The old man tempted Jin if he freed him from here, he would help him kill 100 people he wanted to kill. Jin's eyes couldn't see and ears couldn't hear. He mumbled, complaining that the apple he just found was too sour. The old man had been talking all this time but was completely ignored. So angry he almost vomited blood. Jin now finally noticed him and asked if he had anything else to eat besides this. The old man suddenly said of course he had food, but the place was a bit dangerous, so could Jin free him. But Jin had to apologize, he had already finished eating. The old man turned to stone at his coldness. "You just finished. What did you do?" Jin glanced around, confirmed there was nothing else to eat, then waved goodbye to the old man and left. The old man hurriedly shouted for him to wait, asking who he was and how he got there. Jin sat down and told his life story to the old man. He was Jin Mori, had registered for GOH, and then all sorts of things happened. The old man muttered something, then let out a faint laugh. That bastard Mu Jin had imprisoned and isolated him here for 17 years. He changed since that day. The old man asked if Jin had ever wondered about the true purpose of GOH and how Mu Jin could grant his wish. "Listen, you are being used by him. If you free me, I'll tell you the real reason." But Jin firmly refused to fall into the trap, turned his back, and left, making the old man completely panic. He realized this time he'd met a tough young man, so he cried and struggled. "This is a request. Please set me free. Release me, please." I don't want to stay here. I have lost the will to live. Jin once again tried to be a good person, so he asked what the old man needed him to do. The old man pointed to a computer in the distance. You just need to enter the password there. That is my request, okay? Jin had just eaten the old man's food, so he agreed to help. He asked what the password was. The old man told him to type as he said J. But the old man also forgot the password, so Jin randomly guessed Jin-tae Jin. It turned out to be correct. The old man was confused and puzzled while Jin calmly shrugged. Surprised? His random guessing skill was unmatched. The old man had to ask directly, that's not something you can just randomly guess. You know Jin-tae Jin? Jin walked away while answering, he is my grandfather. The old man called out, Kid! Jin obediently turned back to see if the old man needed anything else. The old man didn't need much, just his life. The old man's bare hand stabbed straight into Jin's chest. This is an honor, a true honor. Jin coughed up blood in shock, then collapsed onto the ground. He thought about getting to know the grandson of the bastard who took his right arm. This was Bong Chim, a member of the Six. Kill him, Bong Chim muttered, unable to believe he actually wanted to repay the grandson of the one who took his arm. Bong Chim gracefully pulled a giant needle out of his body, aiming to eliminate Mori Jin. Suddenly the old man realized it would be a waste of talent, because Jin actually fought back at that moment. Thanks to that, Bong Chim couldn't stab into his heart. And to open those other doors? Jin had eaten the drugged food from Sage, so the old man knew for sure Jin's life was in great danger. Therefore, he would let fate decide. Opening his eyes wide, Jin looked around, fumbling with his face, trying to figure out where he was. A kind man who was using the toilet said, "This is the place where men reach their peak." For a moment, he thought it was just a dream, but the dried blood betrayed him. Jin didn't care because he was already late for his match against Judge Q. He shot toward the arena like a rocket strapped to his back. The referee announced there were only 10 minutes left before the match started and briefly explained the rules. All toys, tricks, and hitting forbidden areas are allowed. Contestant Jin Mori only needed to knock down Judge Q once. The audience heard that and felt like Jin's grave was already covered in grass. Meanwhile, Yu, sitting next to Han, couldn't believe Jin was this late. At that moment in another corner, Mu-jin had found out why Taijin's grandson had disappeared. It turned out the boy had come here. Mu-jin bent down, gently wiped the bloodstain on the ground, and observed. He figured out the blood came from an important blood vessel, but it seemed a bit shallow. Mu-jin suddenly spoke. It's been 10 years already, you've gotten rusty, haven't you, Bong Chim of the Six? The old man sneered. I've been waiting for you all this time, bastard. Mu-jin challenged him to one more match. At this moment, Jin was running with his neck stretched out, looking around for the location of the match. Running along the road, he suddenly remembered he hadn't treated his wound yet. He figured some kind of nanotechnology or something could heal his injury. Halfway through, Jin was panting like a dog. He felt his body was about to burst into flames and couldn't understand what was happening. The hot manager with her hair tied up high looked at the clock and saw there were only 4 minutes left. The manager with shoulder-length hair saw that and suspiciously asked, "Are we going to postpone the match?" She shook her head. Too much leniency, the final result wouldn't be good anyway. Because eliminated contestants might complain or get upset, she decided to disqualify Jin if he didn't arrive on time. Judge Q was sure Jin had run away after his legendary punch. You couldn't blame Jin for that. The referee looked at the female manager and understood her intention. He began the countdown. Jin had 5 seconds left. Each second passed. Everyone's hearts felt like they were on a roller coaster. The referee had just announced Jin's disqualification when he suddenly saw Jin charging onto the arena like a madman. Exhausted and out of breath, Jin stood before Judge Q. The referee announced the rules. You only need to knock down the judge once to win. Q only needed a glance to see that Jin was injured. He guessed Jin hadn't treated the wound, which looked quite serious. Q advised him, "You better give up." Jin was too busy catching his breath, his whole body burning as if inside a volcano. Outside, Han and Yu also realized that Jin was injured. The referee had just finished speaking when Q launched a full-blown attack. At that critical moment, Mu-jin was still chatting nonsense with Bong Chim. He wondered why the old man's seal had been lifted. Bong Chim replied with something unrelated, telling Mu Jin that Jin had eaten food containing Sage's pill. Mu Jin was stunned and turned serious. This has truly become a problem. Bong Chim pointed at him and invited Mu Jin to settle it with one decisive match. Back in the match, just as Judge Q thought he had knocked out Jin, Jin reached out and grabbed Q's glasses. Q was stunned and speechless, then gently pushed by Jin and fell to the ground. The referee also seemed stunned. His eyes nearly popped out as he announced the match was over. The audience in the stands reacted with disbelief. What the hell is that? At that moment, Jin clearly felt his whole body burning. The crowd shouted, "There's cheating, restart the match." Jin still stood like a statue, panting heavily. Q quickly got up and launched continuous attacks toward Jin. Jin ignored the attacks, standing firm and taking the hits. The referee hurriedly stepped in to stop it, seeing that Jin was still standing. Q continued attacking, but this time Jin fought back with a biting taekwondo move. Next came a spinning kick to the head. Q took the full hit and fell down, cracking the concrete floor. The audience witnessed the brutal scene and fell silent, eyes wide in shock. Elsewhere, Bong Chim and Mu Jin were fiercely clashing. Neither was inferior to the other. They exchanged blow for blow. Suddenly, Bong Chim appeared behind Mu Jin and struck his pressure point. It seemed like the old man had won, but Mu Jin managed to disappear before Bong Chim could succeed. Bong Chim realized Mu Jin had mastered that technique. Mu Jin, unbothered by humility, thanked him for the compliment. The two continued lunging at each other, tearing into the fight. Back in the match, Q had officially gone mad. He shouted, "This is starting to get fun." It seemed like Q was about to turn the tables. But under everyone's watchful eyes, Q was once again beaten to a pulp by Jin. Jin's heart pounded hard as he lifted his leg. He kicked Q hard in the head, repeatedly, leaving everyone in shock. Meanwhile, the fight between Mu Jin and Bong Chim had temporarily ended. Both lay battered on the rubble. Mu Jin laughed and said, "You went too easy on me." Bong Chim replied, "You've improved a lot compared to a few years ago. You're strong enough to take my position now." Mu Jin pulled something from his chest while saying the old man should keep his promise when he could no longer continue. What Mu Jin held was a recorder. He pressed the button. Mu Jin's young voice echoed. "Are you sure you're okay, Bong Chim, from 17 years ago?" He replied, "Yes." This was his request. Mu Jin asked why Bong Chim chose him. The old man simply said, "Because you are a fool. You are not confident you can control the sage's pill. You should have restrained yourself, but this old body of mine cannot handle it," Bong Chim said. Mu Jin could decide what to do about it, but was asked to watch over him until he gained strength to stop the drug. Don't let him go, even if he begs. Mu Jin wondered what the sage's pill was and its effect on him. The old man explained, "It increases latent power but does not strengthen the body. However, if someone untrained uses it, they will consume it subconsciously and fall into a coma or even die until they gain control over their subconscious. He will train by locking himself away. It is a difficult process, so please watch over him and do not release him even if he begs." Judge Q finally managed to stop Jin's continuous kicks. Jin was motionless, his heart pounding wildly. Just one of Q's fingers was enough to push Jin away. While the audience remained wide-eyed, suddenly, a notification appeared on a watch displaying GP 2500. A clown figure holding a Grim Reaper's sickle briefly appeared behind Q. Jin sensed danger and immediately rushed forward to take the initiative. Q exhaled deeply. He slashed across Jin's body in an instant. Backstage, the female manager sighed wearily and exclaimed, "Oh my go, this time they're totally screwed." After that blow, Q continuously attacked vital points, leaving Jin lying in a heap. Then the male manager with shoulder-length hair timely held Q back. The female manager checked and shook her head. Jin is already dead. Suddenly a voice rang out. "Step aside," came the voice. It was Bong Chim, and beside him, Mu Jin, also battered, stepped forward. He glanced at Jin lying sprawled on the ground. He muttered, "He really is dead." Turning away, Bong Chim thought, "The legend ends here. It's your fault, so don't come back to haunt me." He suddenly shuddered. An invisible pressure made him turn his head back. Jin was coughing harshly repeatedly, as if to show everyone he was as tough as a cockroach. The aggressive Judge Q prepared to continue fighting with Jin. But fortunately, the male manager stopped Q. Mujin sensed that energy and recalled Tai Jin's words, "If anyone dares to touch a single hair on Jin, they will never appear in this world again." The shoulder-length-haired male manager sensed something was wrong and urgently told everyone to signal the end of the match. Mujin, lost in thought, had no idea how to handle the situation. Manager R stood in front of Mujin. He told him to stop and told Jin as well because the match was already over. Jin hadn't done anything yet. He had just opened his mouth. He was immediately hit with a harsh blow from R. To the astonishment of everyone, a continuous series of strikes was unleashed, as if the one being hit was Jin, who couldn't react in time and had fainted before he could counterattack. Mujin hesitantly asked R if he had been frustrated all this time. R was a little tense under everyone's attentive gaze. He immediately retaliated. "But you were still defeated just like that, Q." He was even hit 3 times. Seeing R's sarcastic expression, Q was furious and wanted to rush in to fight, but the shoulder-length-haired male manager stopped him in time. The match ended. Jin, unconscious, was taken away by Bong Chim for acupuncture treatment. The old man still couldn't believe this could happen. The old man no longer felt the power of the divine pellets. Could it be because he was attacked earlier? Jin had fallen asleep while Bong Chim was doing acupuncture. Meanwhile, what was the old man scheming? Had Jin opened his eyes yet? Before he could fully focus, Jin only saw the sinister look of the old man right in front of him. He suddenly snapped awake, jumped up, and was pierced by the needle in Bong Chim's hand, just before the old man's unfinished warning. Bong Chim stroked his beard and exclaimed that Jin was very lucky to still be alive after taking the herb from the lemongrass plant. This was probably a gift from higher powers. However, the sudden injection earlier had left Jin immobile for a few hours. Bong Chim did something to Jin that made him blush when he woke up. Jin shouted, "You stupid old man, you did that to me. I'm going to have a scar for life." After crying, Jin realized something was wrong. Meanwhile, Bong Chim was struggling to find a page that mentioned the power of the herb when fully consumed. He wondered if the bastard Tae Jin had done something to that kid, or if that power could be. Jin was experimenting with his new source of power. He practiced a few basic moves to test it out. Bong Chim guessed that the body did not actually gain strength even after consuming the power of the herb. In a room, Bong Chim revealed that this tournament was just as the old man had feared. "Have they started moving?" Mujin replied. "Yes, that's right. They have detected signs of movement." The old man asked, "What about the 6?" Mujin replied that they had asked them to appear, but received no response. Bong Chim suspected that Jin Tai Jin and the others had something very suspicious going on. In a corner of the forest, Tai Jin was busily roasting the unlucky pig, while happily whistling. A hooded stranger approached. Immediately, Tai Jin grabbed him by the head and teased him with mocking song lyrics, making him tremble with anger. The stranger easily pulled Tai Jin's hand away from his head. He made Tai Jin unable to believe that incredible power. He invited him to join the group. Tai Jin said one thing, but thought another. He laughed, but struck the guy with his hand, sending a series of trees crashing down. But the stranger used a strange spell. He vanished right from Tai Jin's hand. Tai Jin guessed it was a clone, but strangely it was alive. It returned to its true form, coughing violently and surrounded by a group of other hooded figures. One of them asked how the clone had gone over there. The hooded one from earlier replied as expected. Another figured out that the hooded figure from earlier had failed. But he slowly replied, "It's not the only one. Jin Tai Jin has no choice but to join us." Jin Mori won the match against Judge Q by defeating his opponent instantly. The tournament would pause for a week for repairs and contestant recovery. All 3, Daiwi Han and Jin, were walking together. Daiwi complained, wondering why they were even together, and said they looked like elementary school kids wandering around. A car drove near them. The young master inside ordered his butler Choi Jip Sa to stop the car. Though puzzled, he pulled over. It turned out this young master was infatuated with Mira Yu. On the same street, an old lady happily walked home after shopping when a thug suddenly snatched her handbag. The lady panicked and shouted loudly for help from everyone. The thief felt thrilled, thinking today was his lucky day. Out of nowhere, a bicycle appeared, and both Yu and Jin chased the thief relentlessly. At that moment, the sword in Yu's hand was snatched by the young master from before. He said he was just borrowing it for a moment. The thug laughed gleefully and cursed the young master, calling him an idiot. He had just seen him perform a series of insanely cool moves. He slashed him once. The Oseong Corporation is the nation's leading company in consumer electronics construction, banking, and insurance. It is the main sponsor of FIFA, the Olympics, and sports events in South Korea, and ranks first in customer satisfaction. The whole crowd couldn't believe that the arrogant young master from earlier was actually the director of this corporation. He was still very young. Yu recalled that speed and technique and guessed that he was very strong. Then Jin started a conversation asking him how many hours a month he spent eating. He honestly replied, 64 hours. When he saw Yu staring at him, he immediately bowed deeply. He knelt down on one knee and said he had fallen in love with her at first sight, begging her to accept him. Yu was stunned, unable to believe it. When she returned home, her father was advising her younger sister to wear her older sister's clothes, saying it was all the same and that they were still good and new. He suggested she try them on and promised to buy new ones when she started middle school. The younger sister, tearing up, threw the pile of clothes straight into their father's face. She was upset, asking why she always had to wear Mira's clothes since Mira lived with them because their uncle had passed away. Why was she always the one to suffer? Their father angrily scolded her to be quiet or he would sew her mouth shut right now. The little girl burst into tears and ran away. The little girl was surprised to see Yu outside, but still turned her head away. He had noticed Yu there for a long time and called her inside. First, he criticized her for lacking experience, saying, "How could you hide when you're still so clumsy?" He said the girl was still going through puberty, so Mira didn't need to pay attention to what she said, and shouldn't take it to heart. Mira lowered her head and replied, "Yes." When she was little at the Autumn Sports Festival, everyone loudly responded when told to arrive at 8 a.m. with their parents, but she was the only one silent and said nothing. At Daesung Electronics, the boss was urging everyone to meet the deadline because tomorrow was the final day and they would get to rest. Give it your all. Mira stood quietly nearby the whole time but didn't speak until her uncle asked. She shyly replied, nothing, while tightly gripping her handbag. The next morning, Mira happily said goodbye to her uncle to go to school. Her uncle, snoring, waved goodbye and wondered why she was going so early. The sports festival at school was bustling with excitement. When lunchtime came, everyone had a warm lunchbox from their parents. She, however, sat alone in a corner eating her meal. Her uncle at home found it strange and kept thinking about Mira's behavior from the day before. As for Mira, she was trying to cheer herself up and was overly happy when she saw she had sausage for lunch. Just as she took a bite, a familiar sound rang out. It was her uncle rushing over toward his daughter. On his back, he was carrying someone, calling out to her. The uncle hurried forward while still wearing his striped sandals. Mira, eyes welling up, raised her hand to wipe her tears and called out, "Uncle." Her uncle ran to her, and for a moment it seemed like there would be a tearful reunion, until he struck her with a thunderous smack for hiding the date of the sports festival. Refusing to back down, Mira bit his arm in frustration and tearfully said, "You don't have to worry about that. Your work is more important." Just then, an announcement came over the speaker. The next race would begin at 3:00 p.m. Mira and her uncle ran together toward victory, and in an overly sentimental moment he said, "If we hold hands, we can do anything." Back to reality at the cafe. The uncle couldn't believe it when he found out that the director of the Oseong group had feelings for his niece. The young man admitted it without hesitation, but the uncle apologized, saying their status was far too low compared to such a powerful corporation. Refusing to give up, the young man made his first move. He had already received his family's approval. Secondly, he apologized for looking into the uncle's background, but informed him that the uncle's company had already been transferred under his own. Moreover, since both the factory and the uncle's home were in difficult financial condition, he offered financial support. He also addressed the matter of the transfer, asking not to be misunderstood. He wasn't trying to buy his way into marrying Mira. He was simply being honest about what was in his heart. The uncle, expressionless, slowly replied that marriage is something carried out between courageous people and that he couldn't interfere with it. All he could do was thank the young man for his feelings for her. The young director could only scratch his head awkwardly as he watched the uncle walk away. Mira was carrying dinner on her way home, walking thoughtfully. When she got home, she cheerfully stepped inside. First, she looked at the electricity and water bills but suddenly hesitated for some reason. On a towering floor, the young director suddenly received a phone call. After a few minutes of conversation, the call ended, and he fell completely silent. As for Mira, she was stunned. When she saw the house confiscation notice, her younger sister was happy because of her new uniform. Excitedly thanking her, she rushed into her arms. The little girl couldn't believe it when Mira was proposed to by the richest man in Korea. Happily, she kept asking Mira where she would live and where they would spend their honeymoon. Mira's smile didn't change, as she replied that since she was still a student, they would only have a simple ceremony and she would stay in this house until she graduated. It turned out the earlier phone call was from Mira. Her uncle listened to the entire conversation in silence while brushing his teeth. The doorbell rang and two unwelcome guests arrived, Jin and Han. Jin, curious, said he had heard from the judges that Mira was getting married and asked if it was true. Han was dragged away by Jin, so he didn't pay much attention. Mira was surprised, not knowing how Jin had found her. She calmly closed the door and said she didn't want to compete anymore. Jin leaned against the door and said he didn't know why she wanted to get married, but it seemed she had forgotten that if she won, she could have anything she wanted. She quietly replied, "Since when did they say they would grant your wishes? And how can you be sure they will actually do what they say?" She slammed the door shut, not wanting to hear Jin say anything more. So Han turned to Jin and said, "She said that, so what else can we do?" And Jin was dragged away by Han even though he didn't want to go. The situation was seen by the cousin. At the wedding venue, the guards were patrolling thoroughly. The guests whispered behind the bride's back. They clearly understood the purpose of this marriage. The uncle witnessed everything. He only saw a few people from the groom's family, and they were really rude. The rest were security staff. Seong-jin said the reason was that he wanted this marriage to be a secret. If this marriage were exposed, not only would he get into trouble, but Mira would too, since she is still a student. The uncle slightly liked him. He was even planning to invite some family members and friends. The younger sister was in the bride's room continuously praising her sister for being as beautiful as a princess. Mira gently asked if it was true. The uncle saw the scene and remembered the day of Mira's father's funeral. Everyone around was talking about how Mira did not shed a single tear at her father's funeral. The uncle went over to pat his niece's head. He told her that she could cry at times like this. Mira simply replied that right now, she is the true heir of the family and must be strong, just like her father taught her. Although she spoke boldly little, Mira kept trembling as if about to cry, her small hands clasped tightly together. Right now, the uncle sees Mira just like that day, still a crybaby. The uncle finally made an important decision. He went to see Song-jin and apologized to him, asking to end the marriage. That guy shouted at the uncle, asking why he was only saying this now. He would also call Song-jin's friends and family to talk about what happened and return all the loaned money along with the wedding expenses. Song-jin remained silent. Then he couldn't hold back his laughter. He laughed foolishly in front of the uncle's astonished gaze. Song-jin spoke while laughing, seeming very pleased, saying that's why gangsters have no respect. So this guy in black really is a scoundrel. Is that true? He lowered his head a little sadly, feeling it, and also seeing it was true. He didn't show much emotion. It seemed like Bong Seon's sword. Finally, the national treasure has appeared, and he will definitely be the one to obtain it. He felt capable again, so he kept assigning the task here. Whether allowed or not, he could do it quietly. Song-jin felt very excited. He would make Bong Seon willingly give it up. At this moment, he had already returned, but halfway he told the driver to stop surprising the uncle. He was imagining the softness of that item. The beauty of the sword and its graceful stance made him more and more excited the more he thought about it. He already has the marriage certificate and will not stop. It will definitely be his. Jipsa said nothing, but he had spoken too much. If you think it's not right, then go sue immediately. If you have enough money, then go ahead. This is too much disrespect. The two people didn't know that Sumi outside had heard everything. Her face showed no happiness. She had to find Sister Mira immediately. Both of them were surprised when they heard a sound. The girl ran away very quickly. Jipsa seemed very worried. But Seong-jin found this very interesting. He walked past a group of people dressed in black. He looked very cheerful. From now on, just stay here until this party is over. A guy in black made a phone call and said to pay attention to a ponytailed girl that's Sumi. If you see her, catch her immediately. Songjin laughed loudly with satisfaction, saying his daughter might get hurt if she keeps running away like that. He left behind a loud laugh, but how could the father be happy? At this moment, Sumi had already reached Mira. She shouted loudly, telling her sister that she couldn't marry Songjin and to run away immediately. She sobbed with tears, something strange about her. He suddenly became a different person and insulted her father. Surely he had some kind of scheme. But Mira didn't find it important. She had no feelings for Songjin either. If he didn't love Mira, then she wouldn't feel guilty at all. Actually, this marriage had one condition: she had to pay off all her uncle's debts in exchange for handing over the techniques of Mira's moonlight sword. Sumi kept crying loudly. She just couldn't believe Mira had married a rich man. No matter what she said, it wouldn't change anything. She angrily turned away. Mira didn't need to marry anyone. She ran away really fast, not knowing what she should do. Suddenly an arm grabbed her shirt. A familiar voice said, "I want to talk to you for a moment." Just hearing the voice, she already knew who it was. She turned around with tears streaming down her face. It was Mori Jin. Time had to rewind to 2 days earlier. At that moment, Dae-wee already felt confused. Why had everyone been so busy lately? His heart was troubled. They said they would fulfill his wish, but how could he be sure they really would? Once again, Dae-wee kept forgetting to tell them how they should compete for his wish to be granted. He decided to talk about it later and walked outside, but accidentally discovered something, and it turned out to be Mori Jin. "What are you waiting here for?" He held out his hand to show Dae-wee a wristwatch with a navigation function. Dae-wee thought it was nothing special, probably just some kind of nano device again. But Mori Jin excitedly shouted that they had to stop Mira's wedding. Tomorrow was the final of the GOH tournament and they must not be late. But no, it wasn't that simple. Mira wasn't close to them and they didn't really have any reason to interfere. Was it true? They didn't feel anything at all, but he saw it as a big deal getting married at 17. Just thinking about it felt wrong. There had to be something behind it. "You're like a detective, huh? Impressive." But in reality, her family had accepted the marriage, so this was a fair marriage. He knew it was just a trade, so stop it then. To Mori Jin, marriage was a way to connect hearts into one. Such a clueless guy, yet he still managed to think like that. And that's exactly what makes two people become one, isn't it? Mori Jin screamed in despair, not caring if Dae-wee didn't want to go. He would go alone. A kid like him had feelings that adults couldn't understand. Suddenly, Dae-wee told him to act responsibly, making him pause for a moment. Now forget about the trade. What will Mori Jin do when he gets there? Surely he won't fight innocent people, right? Of course not. That's not the GOH arena. If you use your power there, one mistake could hurt others, right? But you won't do that. Mori Jin here will not use force and will try to persuade instead. He turned his back and walked away. Dae-wee watched him without saying a word. At this moment, Sumi was crying loudly at the ceremony. Her family's house had been confiscated, so Mira had to marry. But that bastard didn't love her sister. What he loved was the sword. She cried so loudly that Jin couldn't comfort her. A rush of footsteps hurried toward a crowd that had already surrounded the two. The man in black started making a call saying they had located Jin. Upon hearing this, he angrily jumped up. He gently asked Sumi if she knew where Mira was. She seemed surprised by the question. He then turned to look at the crowd, surprising them. "Now take me there." Who's stupid? They wouldn't negotiate with the enemy anyway. At this moment, the guide called for the bride to enter the ceremony. Mira, beautiful, stepped in. The people below were jealous. They didn't like her at all. Songjin was standing waiting as her hand was placed on his. The two quickly entered the ceremony. Mira was definitely not happy. She looked toward the two empty seats, wondering where Sumi and her uncle had gone. At this moment, Jin was already in a fight and was being beaten mercilessly. He had said there would be no negotiation. Jin took the beating without saying a word. He even stared at them, terrifying them to death. But he said he wouldn't use force. If they didn't get out of the way, he would walk right through them. The man in black screamed in fear. "What exactly are you going to do? Everyone must rush and catch him." Countless punches flew at him, but Jin didn't react at all. Dae-wee was still hiding beside him, saying nothing. The men in black couldn't understand why Jin was like a superhuman. So many people tried to rush Sumi, but couldn't get past Jin. He was determined. He would overcome everything. She still couldn't believe it, but Jin was set on meeting Mira to persuade her. Dae-wee couldn't believe it, recalling what he had said, that marriage was a way to connect hearts and that he wouldn't use violence. He insisted on telling those men to lead him in. Watching Jin reminded him of that friend and friendship was a way to connect two people's wallets into one. That was also why he was afraid when near Jin. At this moment, the men in black had gathered in full, ready to attack. Everyone wanted to catch Jin. Right at that moment, Dae-wee stepped forward. He had already been impressed and believed that Jin had truly pushed them back. Jin was shocked that Dae-wee had really come. He wouldn't be here alone, after all. That strength was spreading. At the ceremony, the host called everyone to gather and witness this moment. Are these two really going to get married? The worn-out promises and traditions were being recited, and everyone was bored out of their minds. Suddenly there was a loud explosion from outside, startling Mira. Two dashing men, Han and Mori-jin, coolly stepped into the ceremony. The wedding isn't over yet, right? This probably doesn't count as violence, does it? The security guards rushed in, shocked that the two dared to do such a thing. What do you think, this is a marketplace? Everyone jumped in trying to catch them. We'll show you just how big the real world really is. Both of them stared seriously and said, "Bring it on." Who's afraid of who? Just one look was enough to scare them. The two security guards stood frozen like statues, letting the two walk past without the slightest attempt to stop them. Jin spoke up. "What exactly is Mira doing here?" Dae-wee chimed in too. "That dress doesn't suit you at all." She looked annoyed. "I don't remember inviting you to, so what exactly are you doing here?" Jin saw this and panicked, shouting, "What exactly are you two doing here?" None of the security guards dared to act. Those two and their silhouettes were incredibly intimidating. This made him even more frustrated. He thought they wouldn't dare to fight him. He appeared from behind and drew his sword, but unexpectedly, Dae-wee decisively blocked the knife aimed at Jin, leaving everyone stunned. The blade cut sharply, drawing blood immediately. Even the entire group of security guards was shocked. Jin was extremely excited, saying it was just a feint, but who would have thought he'd actually charge in and take that wound? Truly hopelessly foolish. Jin was left stunned too. "Go, what's going on?" Dae-wee turned around. "I'll handle this, old man." "Jin, go convince Mira." Jin bowed his head, but then turned and walked away. His face was full of determination. "All right, I'll leave that guy to Dae-wee. A trivial matter like a little rabbit." Jin felt even more excited. How dare they come here and ruin the entire wedding hall? He threatened you, and considering the psychological intimidation and mockery, this guy deserves to be cut down right. But you're not afraid. If he's brave enough, let him try. The blood had already pooled on the ground. Jin frowned in discomfort, ready to make a move again. He shouted loudly and fiercely, vowing to see if that arm would fall off after being hit. The bodyguards stood watching, clueless, as if frozen. They should be stopping him instead of just standing there. Jin had now approached Mira's side, and everything he knew came from what he heard from Sumi, leaving him speechless. Why are these two so stubborn? Actually, Jin also had his own principle. Do what you want. You want to stop this wedding. Mira doesn't really care. Your life is originally much easier than mine. Meanwhile, the bodyguard on the other side rushed forward and decisively punched Jin. He fell heavily to the floor, making the bodyguard feel triumphant. Catch him again. Everyone was happy and ready to catch him, but suddenly a group rushed in, attacking as if seeking revenge. Mira still said nothing. Jin was being beaten severely, but still had not fought back. Suddenly he shouted fiercely, making the whole crowd startle. He simply asked Mira without fighting back, "Do you really want to marry Jin?" The bodyguards pinned him down again, but with that same determination he stood up and asked once more, "Is this really love?" She remained silent without saying anything. On her father's side, he had regained consciousness, and in his haze recalled the heirloom sword he had left to her. Everyone knew her father was obsessed with the sword, and he had passed away, but that was for the best, because he knew nothing about the world around him. The family was very poor, and anyway, the moonlight swordsmanship ended because there was no son to inherit it. That made Mira constantly worried, so she had to be very strong to overcome everything. Remember before someone confessed to her, saying he liked her personality and work ethic very much, but a truth made everyone think she was crazy. Unexpectedly, Mira rejected such a handsome guy. They really wanted to accept that, but she didn't know that if she accepted his request, she would no longer be strong, and that guy was already dating someone else. She still practices swordsmanship very diligently. Everyone was talking about some kind of nail polish and also kindly invited Mira to hang out. But she didn't respond. Her friend showed off her new manicure to her. Remembering what her uncle once said that she would live with Uncle Duke Chun, she then shouted in frustration, "Why is she always the one who suffers?" She punched him once. The two of them were originally very different. Daewei was fighting fiercely. Only then did Jin begin to feel the pain. Mira was very determined and was sure to protect the family sword. Jin had never held such a great responsibility before, so he was extremely happy gripping her hand tightly and pressing it against himself. He didn't realize how difficult it was, but now he just wanted to tell her she didn't need to marry that terrible person anymore. The mission was almost complete. That sounds very reasonable. If you live for her father's last words for your family, for everyone, then when will you have a life of your own? The more she thinks about it, the more Mira feels moved. What will happen if she just pretends? What will happen when she's 60 years old? Will she still be happy? Or will you go to hell supporting your family, which you must want to do? But at this moment he doesn't know that the bodyguard behind is about to attack. He wants to hit you in the head. The gang is here. Let's go. A group suddenly rushed forward. Surely this time it will be Mira's turn to take action. One last question before we go. Do you really want this marriage? She looked back at herself, the nail polish confession, and thought deeply. But then there was an answer. She is Mira after all. A familiar step approached. As soon as she heard it, she knew who it was. Uncle has arrived. He's angry and won't allow her to marry that person. This is your life, do what you want. Her uncle touched her heart, and this time she truly shed tears. There's one truth: he may have given up the sword, but he won't let anyone be the reason her tears fall. Her eyes welled up with tears as she remembered the beautiful memories of her childhood. At that moment, Sumi also came running over. She no longer needed the uniform. If they worked hard together, they could do anything. She would inherit the sword just like Mira did. Seeing the two of them, Mira could no longer hold back her tears. Don't overthink it anymore, Mira. Jin looked at her with eyes full of light. Do what you truly want to do. Mira, with teary eyes, said, all right. She didn't want to marry Seong-jin, not even a little. The guys in black were still grabbing his hands and feet, so now the question was, can he handle them? She turned her back and walked away, but still said yes. The group saw he didn't do anything, so they attacked. But it seemed like something was strange. At this moment, Mira prepared to strike. She was the one who caused this mess, so she would take care of everything herself without needing Jin. Daewei smiled with great satisfaction, almost like that. He was also very happy because they risked themselves to advise her. It truly was not in vain. Mira had come to find Seong-jin already. He was a bit surprised, wondering what the reason was, since she politely apologized for acting this way, saying she could no longer continue with this wedding. Daewei-han sighed. Hearing it, he knew it was a lie. Mori-jin happily walked around, extremely glad that the mission was completed. Looking at his silly smile, Daewei-han couldn't tell whether Mori-jin was smart or foolish. At this moment, Mira heard Seong-jin mockingly call her a country bumpkin. He felt awkward, which was why he didn't want to cooperate with her. People like her were destined to live in poverty forever because they couldn't earn trust. He continued to insult her without realizing that Mori-jin and Daewei were standing right beside him. This country is full of people without any credibility, because people like Mira only truly love when they are attached to each other. But whatever, he started to swing the sword a little, wanting to strike her hard. He never cared about her from the beginning, but then the sword was still easily blocked. This Mira is not weak. Don't think it's easy to take advantage of me. He was sweating profusely. This is the level of bare hand style, huh? What kind of man throws a punch that feels like a scratch? She didn't expect to find such a loser. Hearing that, Seong-jin froze up like he'd been sprayed with glue. And with that, she turned her back and walked away, leaving him standing there like a statue. Just consider it bad luck with this kind of man. What kind of man acts all stuck up like some fancy fish from the countryside? No need to drag him. I've got this covered just fine. But suddenly she felt a chill or something rush toward her, startling her to the core. Luckily, she was quick and managed to dodge just in time. Did something just explode? Xiangjin over there was grinning smugly again. Looks like you're still just a little girl, he growled in anger. You're still lacking a lot of experience. Explosions started going off all around. Just by looking at those subordinates, you could tell it was about to blow. This place was going to explode any second now. Mira reacted very quickly, but still reminded her teammates to stay inside, telling them to let her handle it. Then Morijin and Daewoo watched the show carefully and remembered to defeat him. He was furious, roaring and wielding the sword like a beast. His sword skills were not that bad either. Mira glanced over. The sudden slash from earlier had injured her. Morijin was a bit worried, but decided to trust the girl that the two of them had tried to convince. She simply punched him once, causing the sword to fly swiftly away. It was like brushing off dust. Luckily, she had seen this power before, recalling that day when Q had upgraded the strength several times over, quite impressive indeed. But Daewoo still had that carefree, indifferent look on his face. She still had some kindness to take him outside. Now let's go before this place collapses. Suddenly he pushed her away. He was so angry because he was beaten that if he saw the three of them, he would definitely beat them into pieces, especially Mira. He was boasting about the sword in his hand, which surprised her. It was her sword after all. Xiangjin started to play tricks by throwing a smoke bomb, making her unable to see anything. The entire building collapsed. Mira was really upset about losing the sword, guessing where it might have gone, remembering that he once said it would appear one day. But everyone should rest assured. She pretended to be satisfied because this was her punishment. Morijin is very patient now. They arrive at the arena where beautiful nurses use nanotechnology to heal her serious wounds. So what do you think about this place? Oh my god, you were worrying too much. Now just relax and focus on healing. Her uncle has stepped in to take care of things for her. The three of you should go quickly. That uncle truly loves this little girl very much. Watching the three of them leave, the uncle truly felt happy. But shortly after, the uncle was handcuffed on suspicion of bombing this building, and one day it might be over. The nurse, both angry and firm, said you can't come here for treatment after fighting outside. This isn't a public health clinic. But she will still treat Mira, so now the two guys will have to wait outside. Daewoo Han is truly worried. Her attack is fierce, just like yours. She has reached the unrivaled level of bare hand style at such a young age. It seems she deserves praise. Now Dean thinks maybe it would have been better not to stop her. Daewoo is really focused on watching the battle board here. You are more focused on watching the battle board here. Clearly, the next match in the semifinals of the GOH Urban Region is between Daewoo Han and Mira. The competition day has finally arrived. Mira is trying to train in the waiting room right now. She has found a replacement sword, but it's quite strange. I have to admit it's pretty good though, a bit heavy. Luckily, this sword fits her hand perfectly, and the shop owner is thoughtful. Suddenly, the wound stings sharply. She went to wash her hands to prepare for the match, but it seems there are still some painful spots. Suddenly, she saw Morijin sitting quietly in a corner. The two of them sat down to talk. You were quite worried about Mira's uncle. He has now been released, and Oseong Company has agreed to take full responsibility for what happened, so that's good. As for the sword, it's also fine, maybe even better than the previous one. But right now you're worried about her injuries, you understand, because you yourself have been through the old man's attack in the warehouse and the final attack from the judge. Nanotechnology can't completely heal the wounds. When seeing Xiangjin attack Mira, it gave Jin a similar feeling. But she felt the pain was gone. Although it couldn't be fully healed, she was sure she could reduce it. Morijin left sadly. He also said that no matter what, he wouldn't come to watch the match between Mira and Daewoo Han. Well then, good luck. The result isn't that important anyway. After telling her, he also went to Daewoo Han's waiting room to check, but found it was already locked. If it's locked, then so be it. He won't care and will just go to sleep right away. Daewoo Han is sitting quietly in the room right now. Daewoo is very tense right now. Finally, the time for the match has come. This is also a highly anticipated battle, the semifinals of Group A. Daewoo Han stepped out, looking cool amid everyone's excitement. His main attack style is honesty and always fighting, which earned him everyone's admiration. Everyone is cheering loudly, hoping he will win because he is a true man. On Mira's side, it's still empty. At this moment, she is inside sending a message. While still hesitating, someone came in to announce, "The message has been sent. Good." She also went outside to the welcome of everyone. She is the only girl left in the tournament, and she is also at the main attack level like Dae-wee. Although her stamina is weaker, the sword in her hand will definitely be her advantage. On the stands echoed the voice of a man announcing the birth of a fighting star just as the match was about to begin. Mori-jin was sleeping soundly in the waiting room when suddenly a message arrived. He quickly turned on his device to open it, and it seemed to be something quite surprising. The two faced each other, and from this semi-final round, there will be up to 5 rounds. When someone is unconscious or surrenders, the match will end. Dae-wee is looking very cool. Mira has to admit he's handsome, he's very serious, and she will be the same to avoid dodging. Not knowing what the message was, Mori-jin was running like crazy to the match. Seeing that both were ready, the entire stadium fell into complete silence. Everyone seriously watched this match. The two contestants stared at each other with tense expressions. At this very moment, the match officially begins. Mori-jin is breathing heavily and panting. He took a deep breath, gathered all his strength, and started to open the door, which opened to a dazzling light inside. Unexpectedly, the battle inside has been very intense. Dae-wee is actually punching Mira. Inside, it feels like a storm is raging like that. Oh my. The entire audience is utterly surprised. Even the MC was shocked, not expecting Mira to be attacked so hard that her health dropped significantly. She was already badly damaged. Would she fall here? He rushed forward and threw another punch. She still couldn't fight back at all. It was like she was offering her face to be punched. They were just so happy together yesterday. He punched her in the stomach so hard that she didn't even have time to recover. Mira fell down, clutching her stomach in pain. He completely dominated her. Mira lay curled up, clearly suffering greatly. Dae-wee Han looked at her with a cold expression. His words were like rubbing salt into the wound. He never once considered seeing her and Mori-jin as friends. That was the truth. As he turned around, he saw Mori-jin standing there watching. No one knew since when, and Mori-jin was very angry. In his hand was the message from Mira, thanking him for everything they had done. Just 1 day ago at the hospital, doctors were trying to save someone in critical condition. The person lying on the bed looked very ill. If this continued, they would last at most 3 to 4 more days. Mori-jin sat right next to them. Was that the wish? Why did he have to win the world tournament just to get it? Now this person might serve him instead because he looked quite desperate, so it had to be reconsidered. He smiled slyly. Everything depended on whether you could win and completely dominate the next match. For now, Mira had already been taken for urgent treatment. Mori-jin looked at Dae-wee tensely. She was already injured, and that was what Dae-wee should understand most. They brushed past each other again. She wouldn't fall unless he hit her in that spot. It would be troublesome if he didn't do that. Why did it feel so dirty playing like this? Now they have agreed to meet in the upcoming final match, Mori-jin versus Dae-wee Han. Group A already has someone in the semifinals. Only Group B is left. In the match between Mori-jin and Jae-hee, who will claim victory, the afternoon had arrived, and the hallway seemed completely deserted. In the men's restroom, someone was leaning over the toilet, vomiting uncontrollably. That person was Dae-wee Han. He was recalling memories that made him unable to stop vomiting. He remembered the person lying in the hospital at that time. He remembered the recent fight with Mira. He had aimed directly at the spot where she was injured and attacked. Then he was startled by a loud scream outside. It turned out to be the signal for the new match. Now Group B would begin their fight. This match was between Mori-jin and Jae-hee. Speaking of these two, we have to mention the 16th match. Originally, they were supposed to fight each other already, but because of Mori-jin's noisy and reckless behavior, he interrupted the match between Gamdo and Manseok. So Jae-hee advanced straight to the semifinals. That's why he still hasn't had a chance to show his skills. His true ability remains a big mystery. Everyone seemed to support Mori-jin more. They shouted for him to defeat that guy and send him back to his hometown to raise ducks. Everyone wanted him to win. Even he couldn't believe how suddenly he became the bad guy. At that moment, he was acting very arrogant. That move you used, wasn't it? The same one you used to defeat Manseok. He teased, "If you're so good, then use it on me." Already throwing out challenges impressive. No idea what he ate to be this confident. Maybe something big enough to change the audience's perception. But if you fight for real, don't cry later. Mori-jin was highly focused. Then he rushed forward at incredible speed and launched his attack. Fine if you want it. He used the same technique that had defeated Mansuk. So what? The MC cheered excitedly. It just started and you're already using such strong moves. Do you want to end this match early or what? Maybe he had prepared in advance. He suddenly rushed forward and grabbed him, leaving Mori-jin completely surprised. Jae-hee managed to sit on Mori-jin's stomach. Unexpectedly, he blocked the attack, and if that wasn't enough, he had already successfully turned the tide of this match. Everyone in the stands was stunned. This Jae-hee guy is actually pretty dangerous. Mori-jin was still pinned down, watching his arrogance. I love the way you show defeat on your face. Now I will explain what just happened. Clearly he had studied it very carefully. From afar, it looked like a simple 3-step kick into the air toward the opponent with lightning speed, but he already knew the true purpose of that attack was to target the opponent's balance. The details inside were far more terrifying than what appeared on the outside. Looks like he studied it thoroughly. After kicking the opponent's head from one direction, you regain your balance by kicking their head in the opposite direction. Jae-hee spoke arrogantly. The impact of the kick from one side combined with the kick from the other side multiplies the damage by 2 or 3 times compared to a normal kick. The damage might not last long, but not everyone can endure it. Even the counterattack method he understood clearly. It was like walking straight into a tiger's den. Simply put, the opponent had to move toward the direction of the attack right after the first kick landed. If you tried to dodge by pulling back, the opponent would hold you in place with a third flicking kick. But if you moved forward, it would neutralize the attack. No matter what just a sideways flick kick already made Jae-hee's nose bleed. The strength of Mori-jin was still formidable. In that case, it's simple, he could attack you too. He smiled slyly, but wanted the audience to see and enjoy his spectacular move. This was Jae-hee's choice after all. Everyone didn't even praise him. They thought anyone could do that move. Dae-wi-han in the stands looked at Mori-jin's face and already knew what was coming. Honestly, Jae-hee was unbelievably stupid. Even though that method was good, stepping into the attack was no different from ramming your head into a speeding bicycle. It required a lot of courage to pull off, but Jae-hee had already predicted that scenario and measured your technique with his own body before daring to do it. Dae-wi-han already knew from this moment on that every attack would be useless against Jae-hee. He was ready to strike. This was just the beginning of the match. He quickly threw a punch. It was finally showtime. But it seemed like he made a mistake. The biggest mistake was wearing a collared shirt. Mori-jin easily used his leg to grab it. The more he pulled, the more it hurt his neck. So it was very easy Mori-jin had escaped from Jae-hee. The two stood up. Time to start over. He locked eyes on him, watching his every move to see how he'd respond to the last technique. Hard to say if it'll still be effective now. Now get ready to try again. This time it's Mori-jin who throws down the challenge. Then he accepts it without hesitation. Jae-hee has already rushed in to follow up. But at that moment, why did Mori-jin come back? This seemed even stranger than the theory. Jae-hee was bewildered. He starts forming a new theory. You're definitely going to kick differently this time, so now he'll target the lower part instead of the center of the move, and then plans to finish the match by twisting your ankle. The theory is already perfect, now charge in and strike. The more he thinks about it, the more excited he gets. He believes he's figured you out completely. But no one saw this move coming. Mori-jin still outsmarts him. He attacked from below instead. He failed once again. And this time Mori's power helped the two of them fly without wings. Even the MC couldn't tell or guess what you just did. But he was already lifted into the air with just one leg. Mori-jin locked his neck and spun him like a top. This time the one getting excited is you. The MC watched while shouting and cheering. They've already fallen, and the audience is going wild too. Has the match really ended yet? Jae-hee was spun like a pinwheel. The power was terrifying. It hit him so hard it punched a hole in the arena floor. Honestly, it looked like a hip-hop dance move. No one knew what had just happened, but Dae-wi-han saw it clearly. Instead of extending your move, you lowered yourself below the opponent, a smart move. And from there, Mori jumped up, wrapped your legs around Jae-hee's neck, and once he was high enough, Mori threw his opponent down, letting him fall first. That move was truly terrifying. Even Dae-wi-han had to praise it. When Mori pulled that off, he attacked from both above and below. Even the feint to trick his opponent was done effortlessly. Mori spun again. In fact, He spun several more times just for a single attack. Why did it turn out like that? Jae-hee regained his balance and still refused to give up such incredible endurance. He was extremely excited, clearly not worthy of being your opponent, but Mori started to feel a bit of pain. Unexpectedly, when he lifted him up, Jae-hee was able to twist Mori's ankle. He clutched his stomach in pain. Got to admit, Mori Jin is really skilled. He truly enjoys this match. So what now? Jae-hee slowly approaches Mori Jin. He stomped once, causing the ground below to shatter. He's scared, yet Mori still doesn't let his guard down. He's strong too. That's why Mori shouldn't underestimate this match. He's pretty serious. If that's what he says, then so be it. He quickly regained his composure. Jae-hee won't be easy anymore, so he charged like crazy towards Mori Jin. I don't know where this protective power came from. Mori also got ready. He quickly launched a powerful and fast kick that Jae-hee couldn't block. Both regained their balance. Then suddenly Mori Jin raised his hand, seemingly about to do something. Then he clenched it into a massive punch. Jae-hee was startled, but before he could react, multiple strikes had already come at him from all sides. The surrounding force was forming into a fierce whirlwind. When he saw it was strong enough, he jumped straight into the whirlwind, even surprising the MC. The whirlwind was created by Mori Jin. And the one who pulled Jae-hee out of the whirlwind was none other than Mori himself. And with that, Jae-hee was officially unconscious. The victory in this match belonged to Mori Jin. At this moment he said his wish he wished he didn't have to use the Dragon Hwechuk technique on Jae-hee. Daewee heard and understood that those words were meant for him. The entire audience cheered excitedly. So the semi-finalist has been decided. The match between Group A's Daewee and Group B's Mori will definitely be a game not to be missed. At a certain school, Daewee Han came looking for someone. He came here seeking help. This person was Seong Cheol. He wanted to use Seong Cheol's intellect to handle Mori Jin's Ray Taekwondo. An intense match is coming up, the city regional semi-final between Mori Jin and Daewee Han. Beek Seong Cheol also said earnestly, "Imitate the movements correctly, okay? All right, follow me. I'm really surprised you accepted so easily. I've been skilled at reading physiognomy for 4 years. The expression on your face clearly shows you're in a tough spot. Although a bit dull, that serious young man's face sounded pretty credible. To test it, he wondered what he was thinking. But unexpectedly, Beek Seong Cheol got unlucky and mistakenly imagined Daewee Han was complimenting him on being handsome. The scene flashes back to 2 years ago when Daewee Han was just 15 years old. Back then, still a reckless kid leading a gang as they walked down the hallway. That guy was chasing a young man carrying a stack of papers taller than his head, blocking their way. Daewee Han, with his reckless nature, accidentally brushed against Tae-seung, causing him to tumble, and the whole group burst out laughing. Why are you walking without watching where you're going? It hurt a bit, but Tae-seung didn't hold it against them. He only cared about Daewee Han. He quickly stood up, politely apologized, and even reached out his hand for a handshake. But the whole group just ignored him. Daewee Han, some thugs have captured our people. They took them to the construction site behind the parking lot to do something. A buzzcut guy ran over to where Daewee Han was sleeping on the desk. This is serious. We have to go save them right now. Then why the hell are you telling me you mess it up? You deal with it. Why should I go save a bunch of screw-ups like you? Tae-seung, sitting at the table behind, witnessed everything and couldn't help but cover his mouth and say, "Why won't you go save them? You shouldn't abandon the people who follow you like that." Daewee Han stood up. "Are you looking to die or something? Go help them." One wanted to go, the other didn't. After a brief stare down, Daewee Han lowered his cap and looked away. The buzzcut guy figured it was best to just go handle it himself. Class began. Although the teacher noticed a few empty seats, he just grabbed the class monitor by the head, said a few words, and let it go. Meanwhile, at a construction site somewhere, Daewee Han's henchmen were being beaten to a pulp. "Nonsense. You brats know right. All this happened because you dared to upset the balance of power," he exclaimed. "You've got a point. Next up, come on out." The whole group lined up and knelt in front of a thick-lipped guy. One with brown hair was a bit too far, so he got kicked in the face. "Damn it, I told you to get closer," a voice came from behind the thick-lipped guy. "I've always thought that the more power you gain, the more trouble comes with it." That was Daewee. Even though he said he didn't care deep down, he still went to save them. But unfortunately, the thick-lipped guy had no idea who he was. Daewee Han couldn't be bothered to explain. He yawned once, then jumped in and started beating them up. Moments later, the whole group had surrounded him, and he kept his guard up, defending nonstop. Seeing his men beaten to a pulp and lying helplessly in a corner, he finally realized how insanely dangerous this guy was. How could a monster like that even exist? Dae Han glanced around the scene. He didn't know whether the ones who followed him had all managed to escape yet. Only now did he realize that he was the one left behind. What a lunatic. A guy holding a baseball bat slowly crept up behind him. Just as he was about to strike, he suddenly got his jaw smashed and sent flying. Dae Han was just as surprised. If you were going to come, then why did you pretend like you wouldn't? I searched for you everywhere. I felt responsible for asking you to come here. Don't worry, I'll take responsibility for you. The rest of the guys had no idea where this random dude came from, but he looked pretty tough, so they all charged in together just to be safe. After a while, both sides ended up slumped on the ground. Is it over yet? Not yet, boys. You bastard. What the hell is going on? Don't even think about crawling out of here. A few of them were still standing, so they kept struggling for a bit. Daewee and Taesung were completely exhausted by now. Daewee couldn't even lift his head anymore. What did you say, the ones who always run first when something bad happens? That's why following is a good thing. It takes advantage of power, and what I have with them is purely a transaction. If you understand what I'm saying, then trust them. Taesung smiled and said, everyone will trust you just as much as you've trusted them. Unexpectedly, the group that ran away earlier really did come back. The guy with orange hair led the charge as they all rushed in to take the final bite of the fight. See? I told you we wouldn't be late. Hey Daewee, you're not down yet, are you? Dae Han had thought he was left behind, so he was a bit surprised. Taesung smiled at him. See, I was right. Back to the present, he was now panting heavily. It seemed the training session with Seung Cheol had just ended. So, this is the Four Corners stance final Blue Dragon. The entire training floor was covered in scratches. What are you planning to kill your opponent or something? Let's just hope I won't have to use it. You have 30%. No, lower it to 20%. That's your chance of winning against Mori Jin. The Blue Dragon technique, I admit, is incredibly powerful, but it puts too much strain on your body. That move is meant to be a finisher. But to be honest, this technique requires too many conditions to pull off. You won't be able to win. Didn't I tell you last time I enjoy a good challenge? The more thrilling, the better. Baek Seung Cheol was speechless at this guy. Well then, even if you end up flattened, don't expect me to come pick up your bones. Right now, Mori Jin is standing in front of Mira Yu's hospital bed. She's still unconscious. The wounds on her face have been 98% treated. Her remaining injuries are quite serious and require nanotechnology to heal. The treatment is nearly complete. She just needs to stay a little longer. Mori Jin stood silently for a while, and then Mira finally woke up. She gestured for him to come closer and whispered something to him. At another hospital, Daewee, wearing glasses and holding a book, read aloud, "This is a common saying in Arabic meaning, 'it is written.' It suggests that some things happen with purpose, not just from one person's will. If you were born in an Arabic culture, you'd understand what it truly means." I've always thought that Santiago is a strange person. A memory flashed through his mind, Jinrei Taekwondo. I've never forgotten it. I've fought many opponents, but that humiliating battle was completely different. 10 years after that defeat, I perfected it through an extremely intense training program. I deeply regret that my body can no longer endure performing that technique. Daewee Han, I will pass it on to you if you ever face someone who uses Rei Taekwondo. Daewee Han listens attentively to the full formula of Kyokushin Karate Guardian Gyohs's Black Turtle, Red Phoenix, White Tiger, and Blue Dragon. Is this the time to think about killing or not killing someone? They say that when you want something with all your being, the universe will make your wish come true. Daewee Han remembered Baek Seung Cheol telling him he only had a 20% chance of winning. His master had also told him that if he ever faced someone with Rei Taekwondo, he must make sure to kill that person. He took off his glasses, closed the book, and said, "I'll be back." Daewee Han walked down the hallway. Then he saw Mori Jin leaning against the wall waiting for him. "Mira asked me to tell you this next time we meet." "I don't want to hear it. I don't want any distracting thoughts before the match. You can tell me afterward." Mori Jin didn't really mind. "I'll use everything I know. Because you're really strong." Daewee Han suddenly interrupted. "This is a piece of advice, don't die in the fight." Alright, now it's time for the highly anticipated match. The city regional semi-final between GOH and the others is about to begin. The result of the semi-final match between the two contestants stepping onto the stage will be decided by the best of 5 rounds, like a knockout stage. Mori Jin and Dai Han slowly walked onto the arena. The audience split into 2 sides. The people on the organizing committee side were also enthusiastically commenting who will win this match. R confidently declared, of course it's number 41, Mori Jin. The outcome can change depending on how well he's prepared. The pretty lady had been rooting for Mori Jin ever since he eliminated Gangman Suk. Q also joined in confidently Mori Jin will win because he's talented and has some extra luck on his side, definitely 100%. R was silent for a moment, then concluded, the loser from the last match folding his cards. Q was crushed. He struggled so much he didn't even flinch against the world's best contestant. That's only natural since he was defeated by a monster like him, right? Every word he said was a critical hit. When the scar-faced redhead arrived to restore order, he quickly asked about the situation in other regions. Everyone was done except for the city area where the matches were still ongoing. Did anyone catch your eye? It was the representative from the Guyong-Sando region known for a very violent match. He was still grabbing his opponent's head even though the fight had ended. And the representative from the Junrado region who set a record for an undefeated winning streak. Their power overwhelms everyone. R finally opened his eyes. Those two don't show the slightest doubt. Level changes don't matter. Q removed the lump from his forehead and said, that's because they're strong. Level changes don't affect that at all, but R wasn't having it. Shut up, loser. By the way, R was also being nosy and told the redhead, what's wrong with him, he's still injured after fighting Mori Jin. For details read, Chapter 13. Q tried to light a cigarette, but couldn't get it to catch fire no matter how many times he flicked the lighter. The redhead turned to Q and said, you loser. Q said level changes can't determine how strong they are. They're just that strong. Although I can't deny I'm really excited watching the matches so far. What I mean is the one with the highest GP in the city area is Mori Jin. Let's see how he loses, how he competes. Q has been holding back all this time. Everyone's ganging up on him. He only lost once and the whole country was stunned. So, you're done too, right? Are you planning to call me a loser? The MC announced, the match begins. The GOH City Arena was heating up with the anticipation and excitement of the audience for the semifinal match. Get ready to fight. As soon as the MC finished speaking, Mori Jin delivered a kick aimed at Dai Han's head. Both unleashed their moves, dancing their martial arts techniques, targeting their opponent's face with rapid strikes non-stop. Neither one was willing to back down. During the fight, Mori Jin was the first to speak. What are you planning to do? Contestant Mori Jin charged straight in with a strike to the lower jaw, followed by a thrust into the chest cage and a knee strike driving straight into the face. For the finishing move, he spun around and kicked Dai Han in the head. Mori Jin's movements were incredibly fast. He kept attacking relentlessly while Dai Han seemed to offer no resistance at all. Mori Jin was showcasing his extremely dangerous power. Mori Jin struck Dai Han's knee to make him bounce back. Contestant Dai Han had no chance to fall to the ground and was forced to endure relentless strikes. Mori Jin let out a roar before delivering a finishing stomp. Dai Han was sent flying straight into the arena's support pillar. Just as Dai was about to fall face first down, he lifted him up using his shin. He stomped straight into the opposite side of the pillar. Mujin sitting inside, watching, also marveled and the audience erupted in noise. This was only natural. The level gap between them was huge. Tell me all about it. Dai Han was gasping for breath. Mori Jin raised his hand, intending to help him up. This action made Baek Sung Cheol and Mujin wonder what. Mori Jin remained in that position. Dai Han suddenly remembered his friend. At this moment, Mujin realized that Dai Han had been waiting for this moment from the very beginning. The moment he took his hand and stood up. That's when Mori Jin realized his foot had been attacked. He grabbed his hand and pulled him back. Phoenix kick. He kicked straight into Mori's elbow, delivering a fierce strike. Baek Sung Cheol crossed his arms and sighed in relief. So this was the plan he came up with to compensate for the level difference. Mori Jin was still stunned by his action. He thought it was a friendly defense, but instead he got his leg broken by his own ally. He's reckless, really bad. He still can't be a match for Mori-jin. Because he didn't collapse from the broken leg, he used his other leg to spin around and deliver a kick straight to the back of Daewoo Han's neck.